I would like to call to order the Monday, November 1st meeting of the Monona City Council. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Court?
Here.
Alder Thomas?
Here.
Alder Goforth?
Here.
Alder Groupie?
Here.
Alder Moore?
Here.
Alder Wood?
Here.
Mayor O'Connor?
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there a motion to approve? We've got, I guess, 4 sets of minutes here to approve the minutes from September 20th, 21st, October 4th, and October 20th.
Move approval.
Second.
Any corrections or additions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Moving on to appearances. I guess we will go have the people who are here to speak first, and then we will go to we have a couple of appearances from our fire department. Let's see, I'm just going to read these pretty much in the order we got them. Ron Binsley, 713 Moigara Road, would like to register against options 2, 3, and 4. Dave Whitty would like to speak against option 3. Dave, if you'd like to, and we'd appreciate if you could possibly keep your comments to about 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Dave Whitty. I live at 5802 Winnequa Road with my wife and my 3 young daughters. They are in 7th grade, 6th grade, and 3rd grade. I am here tonight to speak again against option 3, but I also have some other comments that I think are important to be heard. I have to say that I have been very involved since I received the first letter in July regarding the development of improving Winnequa Road. I've listened to all sides, been at all the meetings, but to find out about this meeting over the weekend, a meeting that I feel should not have been held without more time, that sent a feeling of distrust and lack of transparency by being involved from the start to only having 2 days notice to then come to this meeting is not something that I want our Monona government to be viewed or perceived. That's something that I think we really need to work on so that doesn't happen again. A notice that comes out on Friday that even council members didn't know about is not how we need to move forward. I talked to 3 council members this weekend, and I received 3 different interpretations of what this meeting was going to do and what could be done at this meeting. So it was clear that even our own members of government weren't sure what was going to happen today at 6 p.m. That worries me. I greatly appreciate Alder Call's statement regarding that we are spitballing. And I think that we're all doing the best we can to make the best decision for everyone, but we're not really going off of data. And we're not going off of the best information. We're going off of information that might work here or there, but we're definitely not ready to move forward to vote. There's no question. This started from Bridge to Schluter. Then it went from Bridge to Maywood. Then it went from Bridge to Maywood, but no discussion regarding what are we going to do about the bikes that are coming from the north down the hill. But that was passed aside. We'll worry about that later. There was a discussion about why not look at 20 miles per hour on Winnequa Road for safety. Never wanted to be discussed, just pushed aside. The one-way, changing Winnequa to one-way has gotten momentum by many, many residents. But again, that was pushed aside, not by data, but by the opinion of it would impact other people that live in other streets. Other people wouldn't like it. Those were the comments in the meeting the last time we met. But again, we've not done a study. We've not looked into options. We've really not figured out what's best. The Public Works Committee recommended option 4. And then it seemed like no matter what they recommended, the city was going to do what they wanted to do no matter what. I don't know the history of public involvement here in Monona. I grew up here, I graduated from here, I lived here. But what worries me is that Public Works Committee didn't have any input on option 3, and that's the one that came to my mailbox in July about sidewalks being added to our city and to the street, but Public Works never discussed it. And then 15 minutes on option 4, when the Public Works Committee doesn't even have full participation. What's the rush? Don't we want to get this right? We didn't get it right before. Everybody knows that. The bump outs aren't working. The road isn't working. Why are we rushing? Why don't we take the time? I thank the council members tonight that have asked to get more time to get it right. I am curious to know, when has there been this many people coming to repeated meetings regarding a topic in Monona? And look out tonight. We only had 2 days' notice. When on the October 21st meeting, this was standing room only. What other topic in the last 3 to 5 years has brought this many people up to talk about the pros and the cons? If I was sitting in your seats, I would be excited about the discussions here in Monona regarding Winnequa Road. I would encourage people to come and talk. I wouldn't send out a notice on Friday and only give 2 days so people can't come on a Monday at 6 o'clock without information. That doesn't make me want to come and be part of our great city and be part of the government process. We're supposed to be a participatory democracy, not a government run by a few people who have their minds set on making sure we get sidewalks in before their tenure's gone. That has to change. We've got too many good people here in this room, and we actually have people that were here last time on the 21st who spoke in favor of sidewalks, who have young children. They're not here tonight, but their voice is still important. So I propose to the city that we have a new committee. We have a new bike pedestrian street committee with the new people who are involved in 2021 into 2022 and however long it takes. Because I don't know if there's anyone here in this audience who was on the bike pedestrian committee that, from what I understand, was either adopted or wasn't approved by the city but was reviewed. Again, I say this with respect, but I also say this because I want us to really consider, we have a city, we have citizenship that people want to be involved. They want their voices heard. And if there ends up being sidewalks on Winnequa, I'm not gonna move. I'll be fine. But I like being part of the process, and I like having my voice heard. And I'll be honest, I have felt that sometimes my ideas or my participation is not wanted because it doesn't go along with some of the members and what they really want and what they want to get. And I hope that we all can be reflective on why we're here. We're here because we love Monona. We want it to be the best city we can, and we need to take the time to make sure that we're doing it right. And there's no reason to rush because option 3 and 4 aren't working. So let's figure out whether it's option 5, 6, 7, or 8 with a new committee where we all can we can at least hopefully feel more positive about the final outcome than I think anybody in this room would right now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Whitty. In terms of tonight's meeting, I am sorry that when we sent out the packet to the council, we said it was a committee of the whole, which typically that's the meetings we have when we initially consider the budget. It is a meeting where the council is asking questions of staff to talk about. We were attempting to give the council more time to talk about these different options, but we should have included that information in the email that went to them. I'm sorry they didn't understand that. As far as the council meeting where this budget is being voted on, it's already delayed 2 weeks past what it normally was. We were supposed to be voting on this budget on October 15th. I think you were all sent the schedule of all the meetings that we had over the past several months, and the vote on the capital budget, where we would have been, this meeting right here has always been on that list of dates. So but it has been delayed 2 weeks to allow for more input for people. So just to make that clear. Next person, Mike Mullmans. I assume you want to speak, Mike? It doesn't say.
I forgot to mark that, thank you.
Okay.
So yes, Mike Mullmans, 5800 Winnico Road, and yes, I'm here again. When I bought a home in Frostwoods, I didn't realize I was also buying one in a quagmire. The 2005 reconstruction caused the street to be lowered and the building of the retaining wall in front of our yard. I just wanted to comment on option 4, moving that to the east side. I think would be very problematic, given my front yard. I think I'd either have to plant grass and destroy my front yard as it is now to be able to see bikers coming through there. It's really hard to see our home from the road. We enjoy that, but a multi-use path on that side with the wall, I don't know how I would see anyone coming out of the driveway, pedestrian or biker, from either direction. But I know it's always coming back to these two walls, and it's not only about that. It sure seems like that at some times. But I wanted to reiterate that option 3 and 4 both have problems. I think more time, as Alder Thomas and Alder Kuru have suggested, would be helpful to come up with more options. The more we go, the better options we'll get, I think. And if we develop a framework tonight of the money and use more time to develop those options, I think we'll all be better off. We do have some issues with transparency, and I know you're working on that, so I appreciate that. Just more time to figure this all out and work with these two walls would be helpful, and see what best we can come up with, because option 3 and option 4 both have good points, but we're still not there. So thank you for the time again. Thank you for continuing to listen. Thank you for all your work, all of you. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Tim Casper would like to speak for informational purposes only.
Excuse me, Mayor. Someone texted me and said that the live stream on YouTube cut out in the first 10 minutes on both meeting live streams. It was on and it stopped and ended, so we are not live streaming. If Will could, he is. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Will. Okay.
Okay, Tim.
Well, geez, Mary, maybe they don't want to hear from me anymore.
Recording in progress.
There we
We've
go.
talked a lot lately.
I sent out an email today. I don't know if all the council members got it. I really appreciate the fact that everybody's been willing to listen about this. And I know it's been a difficult process. You guys have put a lot of energy into getting this where it is today. And I want to see that momentum keep going. I mean, I walked in here probably the first meeting a year and a half ago and said we needed sidewalks when it wasn't a real popular idea. I still think all this can get accomplished, and I think we can get accomplished for a reasonable amount of money. And I just think we need more ideas about how to get this done. And I think we can get it done and should get it done. I want to make Monona a place where, pedestrians, bikers, motorists, everybody can be proud of that street. And everybody should be able to enjoy that street, be able to walk along it, bike along it, and whatever else. And I want to make that happen. So I'll commit to you guys, with especially given your open mind, say, let's get this done. And I'll help any way I can.
Thank you very much. Next up is Katherine Kuru, who would like to speak in favor.
Hard to fill that form out. Got a lot of stuff going on. I'm Katherine Kuru. I live on 4905 Rothman Place. I'm not on Winnico Road, but I've been a lifelong resident and bike almost daily. I'm coming just with a few things that maybe in the planning down the road might be more appropriate, but since you're here, I'm going to share them. From a practical sense of view, when we're talking about tear sets, it's only going down to 2 feet. That's alarming to me, because they said that's where the trash cans go and the shrubs. And if you ever see any trash cans on the grass, They are not very stable, and that trash can will be either into the road or into the driveways. So just a little alarm there. And plus, not much place for brush either. I am leaning towards option 3, getting a sidewalk in so pedestrians can walk on it. Option 4 for me, big red alert. The driving lanes are just so narrow, there'll be no place for delivery trucks, service trucks, garbage trucks, mail trucks, anything, except to be filling the pathways of the vehicles. And that you only have the option to go in the other direction. I've been to a couple meetings now, but I've never heard anybody talk about the telephone poles that are out there. There's at least 6 on one side. Some are 1 foot in, some are 5 feet in, and then it crisscrosses along the road. And are they going to be left there, or if they get moved, are there more trees that are going to come down? So I didn't hear anything about that, or even the budget in there for moving telephone poles. And then the last comment is on the one-way street. What we'd be left with is bikers having to go north against traffic, and pretty much we're trying to teach our bikers not to do that. So that setup isn't very good either. So like the idea of sidewalks, but I really like the idea we're slowing down and taking a better look at this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Kurt Stute, who would like to speak in favor of option 1 and against options 2, 3, and 4.
Hi, I'm Kurt Stute, 6003 Winnequa Road, back again. So I guess mostly I'm speaking against options 2, 3, and 4. Really none of the options presented are ideal, and it's because of the limitations of the area. The walls, the terrain, the driveways, multiple factors make it a very difficult thing for the engineers to come up with a option that actually works in that area. There are lots of things to consider: safety, trees, the budget, services, and the inconvenience to residents throughout Monona. Talking about safety, there are real problems on that stretch. The bump outs are one of them. But the positive about the bump out is actually does what it was designed to do to help control speed. That does slow down during certain times the speed on that road. Doesn't work great because of the spacing between it, and there's still people flying down there. But it does actually help in some ways reduce the speed. What negative it creates, which is a lot of the source of the people's biking uncomfortability with that road, is it creates unpredictability with bikes and the traffic lane. As you're driving down there, I never know if the bike's going to swerve in front of me, or continue straight, or whatever you're doing, or if they're going to go up in the bump out. And it's not the bike's fault. There's often trash cans that after they've been emptied get left on them in the middle of that, or there's debris on there, whatever. I'm heartened to see the bump outs go away, but only if there's with the speed mitigation. So I am heartened by the speed mitigation efforts that are detailed in this plan. That's our number one problem on that road is speed. You know, I know there's an average, they said it's like an average of 35 miles an hour on that road. Frankly, if it was just up to 35 miles an hour, it wouldn't bother me that much. It's probably the same as most of our 25 mile an hour residential roads. But there are people who are going 40, 45, 50 miles an hour on that long stretch from Bridge to Owen, and they just come whipping down there. That creates a lot of uncomfortability for people who are biking and people who are walking on there. I will say that during the Public Works meeting, there was a comment made, somewhat, it felt condescendingly, that there's a bunch of people who want to wait for an accident to happen. No, that's not true. The problem is there haven't been a lot of accidents, and the plans that we're looking at, they're going to force people to cross the road, are really going to create accidents. The unintended consequence is we're going to actually make accidents occur where they don't occur now. Yeah, people feel unsafe. I respect that. I understand why. But we're going to create accidents that aren't there now. My biggest concern is trees. My personal one, option 1, I do have the numbers that were presented at an earlier meeting. Option 1 would cause 5 trees that are greater than 6-inch diameter to come down. Option 2 would also 5 trees with greater than 6-inch diameter to come down. Option 3 was 11 trees, 3 of which were ash, so the net result is 8 trees that aren't going to come down already with greater than 6-inch diameter. And option 4, nobody knows because we haven't actually done the study on that. The engineer didn't have time to figure that out before it was presented to Public Works. Just to be clear, that's not the number of trees that are going to come down. That's the number of trees greater than 6 inches. There's going to be a whole lot more trees that are less than 6 inches that come down. And trees are going to die from the trauma that aren't directly in the path are going to die from the trauma of the construction around them. So the number is going to climb way more than what's advertised in that 5, 5, and 11, and unknown for option 4. I have also had comments made to me that, oh, but trees will grow back. Yeah, they're not going to grow back wherever you put down pavement. So it's not true. And you know, I'm hopeful that we will make efforts to replant trees, but you're still putting saplings in the place of mature trees. And they're not going to grow back wherever that pavement's put down. Just a side thing, please don't put in parking bays. That just takes down more trees. It makes the road feel more open, which is going to promote higher speeds. Don't do that. In terms of the budget, I'm really not that familiar with Monona's budget. I know we have a high percentage of the debt ceiling. It's one of the higher ones in the state, is my understanding. I don't know the details. I know you are more intimately familiar with than I am, but you know, I would promote trying to go toward the lesser end of the budget options as opposed to the higher end. Also want to talk about services for residents. On option 3, both the northeast and the northwest residents on that stretch, from basically from Mullmans Road up where those walls are going to have some significant impacts on their services. There's some discussion about having to cross the road to get your mail. Legitimate concerns about where the heck we're going to put the huge volume of leaves that come from and not have them interfere with lanes. Right now it's going into a biking lane, but it's during a time of season when it's not heavily used. Now it's going to be in the middle of the road. Where you put brush, all those things. And then in option 4, somewhat mitigates the services issue, but on the northeast it's still just as bad. And now all those leaves are in the road. So that's going to be a challenge for cars to navigate through, plus bikes if they're on the road. The last thing is inconvenience. I know it's every time the one-way street gets brought up, it gets brushed off because of the inconvenience to a significant chunk of Monona residents north of this stretch of road. And it would be, the one thing I brought up at the previous meeting was, hey, consider it just from north of Owen. That's where the road narrows, we're constrained by those walls. That's where a huge amount of our problems come from. You don't have to go all the way up to Monona Drive now. You can still come in Winnicott Road and now take Owen to Midmore and come down Nichols Road. You're not getting deviated as far as if you make that entire stretch one way. And consider with option 4, the inconvenience that everybody's going to experience from the stopping and starting. You're going to be following trash trucks going down that street, stopping and starting. You're going to be following mail trucks going down that street, stopping and starting. You don't have the space in the road anymore, so it's got to be pulling out into oncoming traffic to go around them, or just follow them and delay your route while you're following those vehicles. Same for the delivery vehicles if they decide to stop in the middle of the road. So last thing I'll say is let's not spend more money to kill more trees and affect our community's environment and actually create more accidents. Don't pave paradise and put up a sidewalk. You know, I'm not a huge fan of option 1, but of all the stuff presented so far, it's the best one out there. Thanks.
Thank you. Next up is Chad Spate, who would like to speak in favor of option 3 or 4.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chad Spate. I live at 3905 Monona Drive, and I once sat in your chair for 9 years. I also served on the Pedestrian and Bike Committee, and I've been a longstanding member of the Public Works Committee, which recently took up this matter. I'm here tonight to encourage you to adopt either option 3 or 4 this year. or at least to budget for one of those options. First off, we all know that there is no safe and responsible way to rebuild this street without including a safe place for pedestrians to walk. Every expert that has come before this council or the Public Works Committee or any other committee has made it clear that the volume of traffic and the fact that this street is an important street connecting the new commercial district to the city of Monona needs to accommodate pedestrians. If anyone in this room was paying attention to the Bike and Pedestrian Committee, which worked for almost a year to try to sort out what the priorities of this community should be, we talked about equity and the fact that communities that don't have safe sidewalks are not communities that allow everyone to get around, because if you can't afford a car, then you're going to be biking or walking. And I know we may think of ourselves as a community where we don't have people that don't have cars, but you're basically saying you got to have a car to live here if you're not making a space for us to walk. Furthermore, we support complete streets, safe streets for the health of our community. That was a huge priority for that committee, and I hope for this city and this council, that we are a community that wants you to be active. You can safely walk or bike around town. And lastly, Monona talks a lot about being a sustainable community, but if we were to rebuild this street and not accommodate pedestrians and cyclists safely, thereby making it more likely that people will drive to get someplace, can anyone look at me with a straight face and say that's sustainable? It's not. I want to address this divide and conquer strategy that seems to have risen up, where you're either for the trees or you're for the sidewalks. I don't know of any environmentalist that says we should create spaces where people simply drive around and look at trees. I think normally when we think of enjoying trees in the outdoors, we walk amongst the trees. Maybe we bike amongst the trees. And yes, we can also drive amongst the trees. But we have to plant trees to offset the driving that we do. So it is a perverse, and false choice that we are presenting to our community, that making it easier to walk, if we have to cut down a tree, that somehow we are being bad stewards of the environment. I just don't buy that argument. And yes, it takes a long time for a mature tree to grow, but you can't replace a life, or when someone is maimed and no longer able to walk. That's a heavy cost too. A lot of people have talked about this one-way street option. And we've also heard a lot about the gateway to the city. If we turn SouthWinnico into a one-way street, it will no longer be the gateway to Monona. It will be the exit from Monona. Think about that. What does that say about who we are? I think if we're honest about the debate that's going on, this is really a debate between the old Monona and the new Monona. As you heard it said tonight, every day there are more people who either move into this community or who, having lived here a while and listened to these debates, realize, yeah, you know what? It's kind of silly that we're so up in arms about sidewalks. I think of it as the fluoride of Monona. Remember when if you put fluoride in the water, that was a communist plot to poison us all. Sidewalks are not a plot. It's not a conspiracy. We're just trying to improve our city. The last thing I want to say is that too often in Monona, we've been a little bit too creative. We've tried to compromise some things, and in the process, we've just created things that are weird and non-functional. SouthWinnico right now is a goofy street. And it's a goofy street because we weren't willing to listen to the engineers that came before us back then, and we made a bunch of compromises, and then we got what we got. We deserve a normal, predictable, well-designed corridor that serves all of the people who we would love to see walk and bike and drive through the city of Monona. I urge you to budget for that safe solution. Lastly, I have to say, because I didn't mention it, as a member of the Public Works Committee, my personal vote was for option 3. And I know there was another member of the committee that also favored that. But the way committees work is when someone makes a motion and presents an option, you have to decide whether you're going to support it or not. And in the it was 4.5 hours into that meeting that we finally got to vote. And option 4 was presented, and we discussed it a little, and then we decided to approve it. The point was that we wanted a safe place for pedestrians and cyclists. I don't care what that safe place looks like, and I'm sure the Public Works Committee would agree with that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, Nikki Stute would like to register against options 2, 3, and 4. Next up is Dave Lehrer. I assume you'd like to speak, Dave?
Yeah, thanks.
If you could come up to the front, thank you.
Well, Dave Lehrer, I live at 5801 SouthWinnico Road. I do care what the final solution looks like. And I don't see, I guess it depends what your definition of sustainability is, but I don't favor removing trees. I see those yellow tape marks on the trees in the corridor, 100-year-old plus trees coming down. I'm not in favor of that. I agree. I think the number will be a heck of a lot bigger once excavation occurs. Citizens have asked for reduced speeds. I think that makes sense. I think, as some have said, in option 4, bikers are going to use the street. I'm a biker. I bike a ton. I run a ton. I'll continue to run a bike on the street. And I've lived there a long time. I don't see the safety issues maybe that others see. There's certainly a lot of bike and walking traffic. I don't see we have a plan of what happens at the north end with any of this stuff. What's going to happen there? When this the plans that are on the table are completed, then what are we going to do at the north end? As far as option 4, the leaves and the snow, right where I live, you're going to have leaves and snow and garbage cans as a big hazard. I think we can make use of the public engagement that's occurred here over the last couple of months and design a good plan. I'm curious as to what autonomous cars will mean to us. We're told we'll all have autonomous cars here in 5 or 10 years. I'd like the engineers to comment on these space constraints and accident figures and how that will change road design and safety parameters. And said we're not listening to the PED bike plan. It completely ignored the Monona Public Service survey. I don't know if council members feel that public survey is no longer relevant. That survey didn't show any support for sidewalks. And if the council feels that that survey is no longer relevant, well, then we should get one that we do feel is relevant. And the Ped Bike Committee, I feel, was driven by the surveys that were completed by bikers, completed with incentives, bike goodies, to fill out a survey, and that was the core of the Ped Bike Plan. The Monona Broad Public Survey was not weighted in that document, and again, that document wasn't adopted anyway. The safety study done by the university, which focused on other corridors, didn't seem to be given much consideration in that document. So I appreciate the time, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Next, Julie Burns would like to make a virtual appearance. Julie, you still there?
I am.
There you
Hi,
are.
everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
You can.
Okay, great. So I am Julie Burns, and I live at 6103 Winnico Road, which is in this area that we are actually discussing. I have 2 young children. I've lived here for 5 years now, and my children were the reason that I chose to serve, or asked and was asked to serve on the Ped and Bike Committee. We primarily would use the road as pedestrians, and I know some people have talked here about that the Ped and Bike Committee was a stacked committee, or it was all bikers, and that's simply not true. I am a pedestrian that wants to walk on the road. I would love to be able to walk on the road with my children and my puppy, but I'm unable to do so now. Also on this Ped and Bike Plan was the principal of Winnico Elementary School, so we were basically there representing children. I'm asking that the council please put funding in the budget. Please do not push this project down the road, so to speak. To do so would be detrimental to our youth and our community, in particular our youth and their independence. Right now, young children are not allowed by their parents to walk or bike on Winnico Road, and that is due to safety issues. So I would say that perhaps there haven't been any accidents because parents like myself do not allow children to be on the roadway. You know, the Ped and Bike Committee worked it was actually over a year. We started at the beginning of 2018, and I think it ended in March of 2019. We met monthly. We had public information meetings. I think there were 3 of those. And at the very first one, I remember tons of families came and said, when are you going to do something about Winnico Road? When? We've been waiting. And as time went on, and other people decided, or felt that sidewalks were not necessary, families stopped going or stopped voicing their opinion because there was a lot of pushback. So I just want to say that just because younger families or people may not be able to attend a meeting doesn't mean that there's not a lot of support for sidewalks in Monona. There were 3 things that the council came to the Ped and Bike Committee about, and the focus was, number 1, priority safety. We want to make Monona safe for pedestrians and bikers, and how can we do that? We looked at making a map. We looked at the map and made north, south, east, and west corridors that could be used safely by pedestrians and bikers. So this would not be for all of Monona. It was for the main corridors so that people could get from one end of Monona to the other into City Central and to all of our parks, which at this point, children are not able to get to on their own, and we must get in a car to go. The other thing was health and wellness. We, as a community, I think we all value health and wellness, especially with COVID. So that was another reason that the council chose this as a priority. And third is equity. And when I look at equity, right now, Winnequa Road is not equitable. It is equitable to people who are able to, that are adults and that can make sound decisions. It's not equitable to children. It's not equitable to people with disabilities. So I urge the council to really remember why the Pet and Bike Committee was formed in the first place. Safety, health and wellness, and equity. Lastly, I support anything that would put pedestrians off the road. Plain and simple, it's just not safe for pedestrians, in particular children or people with disabilities, to be on the road within feet of vehicles that, even if they're moving 25 miles an hour, it's just not safe. And that's why our engineer will not say that it's safe. I do urge you, though, to put funding in the budget, because I feel that the longer this gets pushed down the road or the can gets kicked down the road, I just worry that this, we're going to have this discussion, 10 years from now, and my kids will have graduated from high school, and the newer families moving in are fighting the same fight. So please do put some money in the budget for this. Make that hard decision. Make a decision on whatever the council feels might be the best option, option 3 or 4, and go for it and really make a plan that works the best for our community, for our neighbors, that are hopefully the best for the environment and least intrusive to the residents. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie. And the final, unless anyone else would like to speak, I have one more person, Ben Redding, who would like to speak in favor of sidewalks. Ben? If anyone else would like to speak, if you could fill out a form. Thank you.
Hey everyone, thanks. I'm Ben Redding. I live at 6215 Midwood Avenue. So my backyard bumps up against the backyards on the 6100 block of Winnequa, or 6200 block of Winnequa, excuse me. So I live right there. And I walk to Frostwoods Beach quite a bit at night to go watch the sunset. I do it very regularly. I walk back in the dark, and I have to often decide if I want to walk back down Winnequa, and usually I don't. I'd like to walk back down Winnequa. I think it's a nice street. But I don't like walking down the 6000 and the 6100 block of Winnequa at night, which I do occasionally, and that's because it's dark and there's no sidewalks. There's plantings right up against the street. If a car were to swerve, if a car were to not course correct on the gentle curve of the road, whatever, they're looking at their phone, there's really nowhere there's not even a spot for me to go. There's nowhere for me to dive out of the way in some blocks. I would just much rather have that problem be eliminated. And not to mention what happens when I'm walking down that it's not a sidewalk, the path or the side of the road with my kids. My kids, you know how kids are. They're not paying attention to what's coming down the street half the time. They just know they got to stay in that little area most of the time. It's terrifying, quite frankly. I got a friend with a blind dog practically that charges at cars that come at it. I mean, like, this road's a joke. I can't believe like half the people that are standing up saying things about all the studies that need to happen and the delays we need to take. It's privileged at its worst. It's being privileged at its worst. Like, we have to fix this problem, and we need to do it now. We need to do it soon. It should have been fixed a long time ago. The city needs more sidewalks, not more debate about whether or not we should have sidewalks. We need sidewalks on both sides of that street, if you want my real opinion. With 60 feet of right-of-way or more on the lake side of Winnequa, seems like there's a lot to work with. There's ways to go around trees. There's trees that we can select over other trees. We can plant better trees than just your cheap saplings. I just don't understand what all the debate is about. Sidewalks are a no-brainer. Other points that have come up just sound like stalling to me. I put my garbage can on the grass every week. Works out great. I get stuck behind a garbage truck sometimes when I'm driving somewhere. It sucks. I take my time and I get home. Eventually. It doesn't happen that often. One way? Are you kidding me? You think you're the only people in Monona? Thank you.
Thank you. That is all the speakers we have, but we've received quite a few communications since this all started last summer, and I'm just going to read names and addresses and just the general comment, kind of just a general comment of what the emails were about. So Joan, I will give you all these when you're done, so you don't have to try to record them all, okay? You can
Thank you so
They all
much.
have the name and address. and whatever, so.
I appreciate that, thank you.
I'm just reading these in the order that we received them. David Whitty, 5802 Winnequa Road. This is back in July. Does not want sidewalks. Mike Mullmans, 5800 Winnequa Road, no sidewalks. Adam Miller, 709 Moigara Road. He wants increased safety on South Winnequa, and he would support sidewalks. Jan Marshall Fox, 5805 Winnequa Road, would like to remove the bump outs. Julie Burns, 6103 Winnequa Road, supports option 3. Kelly Unke, 6111 Winnequa Road, does not want sidewalks. Mary Rowe, 5803 Winnequa Road, does not want sidewalks. David and Sharon Lehrer, 5801 Winnequa Road, does not want sidewalks. Michael Mullmans, and I know some of these are repeats, 5800 Winnequa Road, does not want sidewalks. Christine Zenger, 907 Progressive Lane, supports sidewalks. Sharon Polalis of Maywood Road, had some questions about the impact on ecology of removal of trees and if street lighting could be improved. Matt Galing, 6110 Winnequa Road, supports sidewalks. He does not want parking on South Winnequa. David Lehrer, 5801 Winnequa Road, is concerned about the proper use of TIF. Andrew Gaston, Winnequa Road. I know he lives on the south end. I don't have his address right here. He has a lot of safety concerns about South Winnequa and supports sidewalks. Dana Goodman, 407 LaBelle Lane, supports option 3. Craig Oswegen, 6008 Winnequa Road, does not want sidewalks. Sam Bolrod of 5405 Midmore Road, supports options 3 or 4. Dana Goodman, 407 LaBelle Lane, feels that accessibility is important on South Winnequa. Caitlin Iverson, 403 Midland Lane, supports option 3. Kathy Kuru, 4905 Rothman Place, brought up a lot of safety concerns about option 4, does not feel it's a safe route to go. Julie Burns, again, first choice is option 4, but anything that removes PEDs from the road is what she would support. Peter McKeever, 6302 Southern Circle, initially supported option 4, but upon reflection, he feels that option 3 is the best option. However, he would like to see sidewalks on both sides if possible. Then we got input, as Doug Wood mentioned, from MPO, which is the district, the area transportation planning organization, correct?
Mhm.
Who felt that option 3 would be the best. Tanya Hamilton Nisbet of, I know she lives on Winnequa Trail, would like to remove the bump outs, resurface the road, develop a gateway treatment scheme for major intersections, begin discussing a corridor study, including a budget and RFP to include one option with zero tree removal. Mary Ann Reed, 5602 Winnequa Road, has concerns with safety of number 4. Larry Reed, same address, supports option 3. Douglas Paul, 4418 Oak Court, supports option 3 or 4. Mary and John Rowe, I don't have their address here, I think it's on an earlier one.
They're in
Oh, I'm
Winnequa.
sorry, 50, I know they're in Winnequa, 5803 Winnequa. Support option 4. George Lightborn of 5900 Winnequa Road, supports option 4. Michael Harriman of 6008 Midwood Avenue, supports one way and no parking. Andrew Kitzlar, 4514 Midmore Road, supports options 3 or 4. Dan from Championship Awards, I know his last name and I can't think of it right now. I know he lives on Winnequa Trail, does not support speed humps, supports a multi-use path. Adam Miller, 709 Morgara Road, supports option 4. Dana Goodman, 407 LaBelle Lane, supports option 4. Kevin Metcalf, 4112 Midland Lane and 1119 Pocahontas Drive, does not support speed humps, supports the multi-use path. Tim Casper, know you're on Winnequa, I don't have your address here. Supports One Way. Pamela Kitzlar, 700 Graham, supports sidewalks. Ivo Rosendahl, 106 Tenuous Circle, thinks option 4 is a good start, needs more work and a way for people on the east to get to the crosswalk. And then we got one more during the meeting, Nick Novak, who does not want speed humps, and yeah, he supported the other who didn't want speed humps but did not mention the multi-use path. So those are all the emails we've had since late July when we first had the first public information meeting, I think. Okay, so we will move on to the next part of the appearance section of the meeting. First is introduction of Fire Lieutenants Brett Hayden and John Lockwood. Chief, if you'd like to come up.
Well, good evening.
Good evening.
First of all, it's great to see everybody here. I've met more people in the last few weeks with this issue than I have in the entire first year I've been here, so just good to see everybody. Unfortunately, both Lieutenant Lockwood and Lieutenant Hayden are out of town, unforeseen travel, so they will not be here tonight. Lieutenant Lockwood, Lieutenant Hayden both live within the city of Monona. One's been with us since 2004, one's been with us since 2014. I'm going to try and encourage them to come to a future meeting when they're back in town and not traveling, but I'm who you get tonight, so that's all I've got for that.
And you're promoting both of them, correct?
They have both been promoted.
Correct. Thank you. Next is also you, I think, presentation of results of Monona Fire Department's Fill the Boot campaign for the Muscular Dystrophy Association.
Well, yes, I have my friend Elizabeth here from the MDA. So we partner up with them every year. I can't even tell you how many years we've been doing it now. But it's a group of local 311 folks, our volunteers, the MDA. We all get together and fill the boot at intersections in Monona. We were unable to do it last year, unfortunately, due to COVID. But this year we're out at Broadway in Monona. And over a 2-day period, our staff, and thanks to the generosity of the folks here in Monona, we're able to provide a check of just over $11,000 to the MDA from the city of Monona. So
that's wonderful.
Elizabeth,
Well, I've learned a lot about option 3 and 4 tonight in Monona. Thank you. I'm from Waukesha, so I hope you guys figured it all out. But I just wanted to say thank you so much to the committee, the council, to Chief, the police chief, and the citizens of Monona. As you guys know, last year COVID pretty much shut everything down everywhere, and fundraising was one of the biggest hits that got a hit. Our fundraising was down over 90% across the board. Firefighters are not able to go out and fill the boots. In 2019, we raised $23 million nationally with this program, and over $400,000 in the state of Wisconsin. And in 2020, we raised just over $80,000 in Wisconsin. So you can see the effect it has when our firefighters cannot go out on the street to collect to support our local families. So I just want to thank you guys so much for all of your support. Mayor O'Connor, Mary, thank you so much for all of your support in letting the firefighters go out and collect on the street. It makes a huge difference in the amount of money raised, and we really, really appreciate you guys backing us year after year. So this money will help over 500 families in the Madison area. So thank you so much for it, and we look forward to another event next year. So thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much. And Jerry, please be sure to thank everyone in the department for all the efforts.
absolutely. We actually were planning on getting a couple here tonight, but they actually went on a call number 9 tonight.
Yeah.
So.
They had to work. I mean, yeah.
That's how it goes.
Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to our agenda. There is no public hearing. There is no consent agenda. Item G, council action items under unfinished business. Item 1A, consideration of resolution 21-10-2516, clarification of police department policies, review procedures. This is put forth by Alder Thomas and the Public Safety Committee.
Move approval.
Second.
Chief, did you want to come up and?
Hello, good evening, everyone.
So this resolution will actually provide some clarification and a little bit more autonomy for the police department while still reserving, I think, the intent behind the original resolution, which would be to have direct oversight, review, and of a particular policy that I think is critical and very important to the community at large. That being citizen complaints, vehicle pursuits, use of force pursuit, operation of emergency vehicles, mobile AV recordings or body-worn cameras or in-car video cameras, rendering medical aid, and as well as a canine policy, which was added at the last discussion.
Any questions or concerns? No, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Chief. Next item, 1B, consideration of Resolution 21-10-2514, approving the 2022-2026 Capital Improvements Program and 2022 capital borrowing. And I think we already had a motion for this, correct, Joan, at our initial meeting?
We tabled.
Or no, or we tabled
We
it.
tabled it,
So,
so-
yeah. Is
Oh,
there a
oh.
motion to remove from the table?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Budget is removed.
I'll move approval.
Second.
All in any
No,
discussion?
That's for the entire budget.
That's
so-
for the entire budget,
yeah.
right? All in favor, say aye.
No, we don't
Or I'm
wanna-
sorry, no,
let's
we have to
do-
go through all this
yeah,
first.
it's-
I'm not thinking. Okay.
I mean, we could vote on it right
Yeah, let's just do
If it
it.
were only that easy.
That'd be faster.
Okay, we have 6 proposed amendments. We will go through those one at a time. We move here to the next page. On page 20, Amendment 22-01, SouthWinnico Road. This would be to decrease it by $1,193,750. Amendment to scale back the SouthWinnico Road project to just remove the bump outs and add signage about it being a shared roadway. Alder Goforth would like to see more planning and public engagement before moving forward. Is there a motion to approve this?
I move to approve.
Is there a second? Hearing none, motion fails for lack of a second.
Mayor,
Alder Thomas?
I just want to ask a question. I would like, when it is appropriate, to make a motion to have the SouthWinnico Road, to remove sidewalks, because that hasn't been determined, but to leave in the full amount, whatever, what is it, $1.5 million?
Are you talking about option 3 is what is in the budget right now?
Yeah, well, so I'd like 3A, which is, I think that to state that option 3 says and sidewalks. Does it not?
I think we're just approving the amount.
It says, yeah, I mean, option 3 is road improvements with sidewalk and curb adjustments.
So I would like
So
that
those are all
just to say South Winnico Road improvements, because we haven't decided on sidewalks. We don't know whether it's a path or a sidewalk.
When should we bring that up?
Yeah, so I think just for clarity's sake, you could offer up for council a new amendment 22-7, and you could articulate what, if anything, you'd want to change on that budget page, which in your packet. If we're talking specifically about South Winnico, that's page 18 of your packet.
Okay.
And I assume we want to include, say what the amount is.
Correct.
We want to include
I mean-
it, correct. Okay, so we'll move on, we'll get to Amendment 7 then at the
Yeah,
end.
okay, terrific, thank you.
Amendment 2202, an amendment to provide $30,000 for a polymer coating on the Bridge Road deck to be funded from unspent 2020 capital funds, and this is put forth by Alder Wood. Is there a motion to approve this?
I will move to approve.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Doug, did you want to say something?
And I think it's pretty straightforward. Dan had brought this up
Looks like Dan.
at the committee of the whole.
Dan? Sure, Dan, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank
I'm
you,
sorry,
Mayor.
Doug.
I would just like to point out 2021 capital funds, the amendments written for 2020.
This is really a carryover.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's 2020 capital funds, is that right?
It would be to carry over 2021 capital funds.
Oh, that's
into
right,
2020.
yeah. Forgot, okay,
It's
yeah.
a carryover.
Okay.
You're
In this
correct.
states, the amendment says 2020, but it's really 2021.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Do we need to make any sort of friendly amendment to alter that before voting, or? So I'll make a friendly amendment to acknowledge that this is unspent 2021 capital funds.
Is that okay with you, Doug?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor of Molly's, do we need to vote on Molly's friendly amendment? No, okay. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor of amendment 22-02, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next is item 2203, an amendment to increase funding for the Fireman's Park bicycle pad and rack from $5,000 to $15,000. The source is GO bonds put forth by Alder Wood.
Move approval.
Second.
Jake, do you have anything to say about this?
No, Mayor, nothing further.
Doug, did you want to?
Well, we've talked about it before. It's basically to cover the cost to do both the pad and the rack, and so.
Any questions, anyone? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 2204, amendment to reduce funding for the community center design plans for remodel from $50,000 to $15,000. The funds will be used to design ways to address the most urgent community center building needs to be identified by Jake and Diane, but mostly focused on the senior center. The 2023 construction funds would be $270,000, which is about 30% of what was originally proposed. Adopting this amendment would be a statement of this council's intent to begin construction of a new community center, senior center in 8 or 9 years. Is there a motion to approve this?
So, could I ask Jake a question first?
Do we need a motion first?
Well, I was gonna make it, I think he said 20,000, it's really more in line with what we needed.
Oh, then 15.
Than 15. He's shaking his head yes.
Yeah, Alderwood, yes.
Okay.
I think that would be more appropriate for design on a reduced scope.
Okay, then I will offer this amendment, but in the amount of $20,000.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Yeah, but a second, but I do have a question about that. Forgive me, but it seems like, I don't know, maybe, I mean, we talked like we were winnowing it down to pretty small. I mean, the staircase alone is a pretty hefty thing, but then beyond that, I think we were talking about getting Diane out of her icebox. And making a few other small adjustments, so I guess, and 20,000 just seems like a...
This is just for the planning.
I know.
Oh, okay.
That seems a little bit, just wondering, I don't know, it just seems a little bit high just for planning, given that we know that it's gonna be a super small
Doug, did you have?
budget.
Well, I think you sort of get into the question of how much money do you want to put into a building that you're saying is going to be gone in 8 or 9 years?
Right.
So, but I guess I would hope that study would tell us maybe there would be more than $270,000 worth of work that needs to be done.
Okay.
By the way, I think, Mark, this says library building envelope study.
Yeah.
And then
Last time. You're right.
it's the community center design plans.
So we reduce that down to 20, down to 30.
So the decrease would be 30,000, taking it from 50 down to 20.
City Administrator Gatto?
Thank you. Just a point of information for the council. I don't know that this is going to change your amendment, but I wanted to put this on your radar, and Senior Center Director is here as well. If you recall in our previous discussions, one of the challenges we were trying to solve for is providing an enclosed space for people to come in that would be heated, and there was some concerns about how we do that given the location of the building and its proximity to the pool. Late in the afternoon on Friday, we got a quote from an electrical contractor for an option of a hydronic heated door curtain, so like a curtain of air system, which would actually be more effective than doing kind of the enclosure that we had previously talked about. Since that came in so late on Friday, it wasn't anything I was going to put in your packet as a decision item for tonight. But I did want to just put that on your radar, that it may be the case if we do some more investigation on this, we come back at a later date for an amendment for further discussion, but just wanted to put that out there. I don't know, Diane, if you had any other thoughts or comments on that?
Yeah, one of the other advantages of this particular project, I think Brad included some ductwork that would include like my office area that does not have heat. So I think it could solve a couple of problems beyond what, beyond just the vestibule type of concept that we were looking toward.
Can you tell me, is this something, I thought we were talking about that particular option was something we could do sooner, not as part of this project,
Yeah,
is that right?
Yeah, and so that's the one thing, I haven't had a chance to dive into the existing capital budgets to see what funds might be available to tackle this component, the air curtain, yet this year. So I will have more information for the council at some point in the near future. But as we're talking about this building, I just wanted to make sure that that was on your radar.
Okay.
So we might need an amendment later.
Later, yep. So I think you're fine to do whatever amendment you want to do tonight, but I just wanted you to know there may be more moving pieces on this one later.
In this the option that you just got the information about would not necessarily be included in this planning process, right? Because we'd be doing that
right
sooner.
Yep.
So leave it at 20, is that?
Yes.
Any other questions, concerns? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, just for the clarity of the minutes, the 20,000 was the decrease in the line item, or the amended budget was 20,000?
The amended
budget. The amended budget
Okay.
would be 20.
Got it.
Amendment 2205.
We didn't vote on that.
Oh, I'm sorry. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 2205, put forth by Alder Thomas, to change the funding for the sidewalk portion of SouthWinnico Road modification from general funding to TIF funding. This is within a half mile of the TIF boundary. Sidewalk portion to TIF, $430,000. So Kathy, I'm not sure how you want to...
I would, well, I first of all would move and not say sidewalk portion, but would say Winnico Road improvements.
Okay, so I guess so is that a friendly amendment to your
It is.
amendment?
I'll second that.
I have a question about, wouldn't it have to be sidewalk?
It does not have to be sidewalk.
Okay,
It could conceivably be used for a multi-use path as
okay,
well.
but some sort of pedestrian option, essentially.
I think we're all agreed that we're doing something in this budget about a pedestrian option. We're just looking at
Okay.
different options, correct?
I recall on multimodal because it might be the bike. My understanding is that the road, the bike, anything that transports people within a half mile to the TIF district is budgetable.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want us to, so I would call it multimodal improvements to South Winnico.
Okay, does that
Does
sound?
that work for people?
Yes.
Okay.
Let me get that, please.
Multimodal improvements.
Got it, thank you.
Okay. Any questions or,
So that's the amendment.
okay.
Is there a second?
Yep.
Yep. So are there any questions for Alder Thomas? Okay, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 2206. This is a motion for $2,000, to add $2,000 to conduct an inspection cost estimation process for the potential relocation of the WVMO radio station to the city-owned house next to City Hall and relocation of the municipal court office to the WVMO offices for privacy and accessibility purposes. Did you want to address this?
Needs to be a second.
Is there a motion, this is put forth by Alder Goforth, is there a motion to approve this?
Move to approve?
I'll
Is there
second.
a second? Okay, I think,
If I could just
Mr.
offer
Gatto
some
has
point of information for the council. So since we talked about this at the last capital discussion, we've tried to do a little bit of homework on a couple of different options just to get a sense of what would be involved. So a couple things. There's the more immediate issue of needing to have a space away from the police department for the municipal clerk, court clerk position. So that is an item we have found a way for probably less than $2,000 to reconstruct some office space, cubicle space, if you will, in the back portion of the administrative wing. So we would move the building inspector position back to the back of the admin wing, kind of by my office and Director Stefani's office, which would then open up the current office that the building inspector is in presently to relocate the municipal court clerk into that office. That office would have a door to provide some privacy for that position when they're doing that. So that's something we're doing kind of in the immediate term, just because we know that that's an issue that needs to get resolved. There's the second larger question about the cost to renovate the house next door to make it viable for WVMO for relocation. That, quite honestly, would take more investigation to know with certainty. We do have a staff member on Public Works who does kind of construction on the side, and he took an opportunity just to walk through the building, the house, just to get a sense of, what was there and what are some of the things that we would need to be mindful of in any sort of conversion. So just there's no dollar figures attached to this, but just from his running list, the front door would need to be enlarged to meet ADA requirements. The driveway, you likely would need to add a railing to meet ADA requirements. Mold abatement in the basement, and then probably some air quality improvements on the main level if you're going to have people working in there. Given that basement was not really touched prior to our purchase of it, some finishes likely would need to be removed just to make sure that space is usable and workable. There is some moisture that is in the basement, and we're not sure at this present moment if it's water that's coming in from drainage around the foundation or if it's moisture coming up from the ground. So that would have to be taken a look at. Bathrooms would likely need to be upgraded to meet ADA standards. Presently, there's only a window AC unit, so we'd have to take a look at that. There is an HVAC heat system forced air, so that's probably okay. And then we'd obviously have to make sure that we do any lead or asbestos abatement if we found any with any further investigation. Those are just the building side of things. I know Will was still working on kind of the technical aspect of relocating the WVMO equipment over to the structure. That would be a separate cost that we'd need to account for. So a lot of moving parts in this particular item, but I just want to give you a sense of where we're at right now.
Alder Thomas, then Alder Wood.
I withdrew a motion because we are going to, I thought, look at some options to move the court clerk, and that you were going to look at the finances. That's still in the works.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you just explained.
Yep.
Alder Wood.
Yeah, I guess that was my question for Alder Goforth. Was the main goal of the amendment to get the court clerk private space, or did some other thing associated with WVMO that's important?
It was kind of twofold, and so I appreciate that you found space for the new court clerk. I do want to make sure, can she professionally serve her clients from that new space? Because the situation we had before, she was having to meet clients out in the parking lot because they did not feel comfortable coming to the police department. And so I just wanted to see that was mitigated and she was able to professionally serve her clients.
Yeah, I mean, I think so, and we have the new person that's come on board now, so we'll obviously be meeting with her to kind of flesh out more what her specific needs would be. We would likely need to make some adjustments to the front counter to make some separate space, because we've got kind of the everyday admin, walk-up traffic, and then we'd want to make sure that there's some space for municipal court clerk traffic, so that they wouldn't have to go over to the dispatch side of things. So yeah, that piece is still something we're working on right now.
Okay.
But she would have a separate office with a door.
Right.
Yes, yeah, that
To
part would be true.
clients,
Yep.
and they'd be coming into the admin wing, not
Correct.
Yeah.
dispatch.
Do you foresee any other future space challenges with staffing there, and like because WVMO, they would love to move to the house, you know, they feel like they would get more volunteer engagement, maybe some excitement about that, and, you know, it's sitting there. So, yeah, do you foresee any space challenges coming up? Like, is that a something we could continue to move forward with, and just to, you know,
I mean, I guess,
mitigate those?
yeah, I guess it kind of depends on if there's plans for additional staffing beyond kind of what we have presently. I think we have everyone accounted for
Okay.
in the admin wing now. If that were to change in the future, then that would be more of a challenge in terms
Okay.
of available space in the admin wing.
All right.
I
Well,
think one other thing about that, the thought is that when we do the public safety building, which, as you know, we hope to start within the next year or two, that will free up the space in the police department wing, and we will have area
right,
for
yeah.
more office space then.
Excellent.
Hopefully within the next few years. Alder Thomas?
With all due respect, I think we should talk to Will about this, because I talked to Will about it, and I think there was a lot of volunteer effort to go in and set up the equipment. The cost of doing that, which WVMO, I don't think Cable Committee has the resources to move.
Got it.
Which as I understand, was done initially by a lot of volunteers.
A lot of professional engineers.
And was very, very time-consuming. While it would be wonderful to do that, I don't think that we have the capacity within the cable budget to affect such a move. And if Will is in there,
I was going to say, before you chimed in, I was going to modify my amendment, if I could, to say if you need financial coverage for the new admin window, I could modify that if you feel that that's a need. I just want to see our court clerk professionally serving customers. So, you know, if there's a need for finances there.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
This is probably a little.
Yeah, I may,
top
if
even.
that's the case, I may come back with an
Okay.
amendment separate from.
So why don't I pull this then, withdraw this right now, since that's all been kind of worked out. I know it's been a really hard budget year, and I just certainly don't want to add to that with all the other challenges we have.
Okay. So do you want Will to speak at all, Kathy, or?
I'm sorry, what?
Will is out here to speak if you'd like him to say anything about
Well,
moving WVMO.
I leave the option up to Will. Do you want to respond to this?
I don't need to if we're gonna pull it and not go that route right now. I can do it at another time.
Okay.
If it comes down the road.
Yeah. Thanks, Will.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so we withdrew Amendment 6, and that brings us to Kathy's new amendment, Amendment 7. Or do
Okay.
you think we covered the changes within your other amendment?
Oh, yeah, I don't
Or
need.
is that, you want a separate amendment?
I think we should.
Okay.
So I am, what are we talking about?
You wanted an additional amendment, you want a new amendment to say that we would continue working on Winnico Road on the multimodal options, is that right?
Yep, I do want to do that amendment. So,
Did you have any wording for that, or?
I didn't even see Kathy's original amendment.
It was one she had mentioned tonight.
Yeah, she mentioned it tonight, that she.
She's making it
what
now.
I would like to say is 1.5, whatever the amount was, to fund multimodal improvements on Winnico Road.
So are you want to take the amount from option 3 or option 4? Right now, option 3 is $1,343,750.
The maximum amount.
Okay, the maximum amount would be option 4, $1,379,750, so it's
Yep.
about $35,000 more.
I just want to clarify, and I don't know where we are in the process for
Can
the
we just
amendment.
make sure, how about Kathy as her motion wording, or did you, what you were gonna say affect the
Yes.
wording of her motion?
I think, I personally would say that I feel comfortable approving this amendment only if we have something specific about pedestrian relocation off the roadway. I don't feel comfortable leaving that part.
That's why I said multimodal.
Right, so I just want to make sure that we are explicit in saying, in using the term multimodal forms of transportation, that we are committing to a pedestrian relocation option. I feel very strongly about that, and I think, no matter how it unfolds, as you mentioned, I just think we need to be explicit that that is something that we are going to include.
Getting the
moving forward.
pedestrians off the road.
Yes.
That's my intent.
Okay.
And I assume that that's what that means.
Pedestrians off the road.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna need correct wording if it's changed.
Joan, you wanna read it? Yep.
What I have is, wants to have $1,379,750 in funds to fund multimodal options on Winnequa Road to include a commitment to getting pedestrians off of the roadway.
Just terse enough, right? Just we really.
Is that right?
And then it would
So
have to strike that this would supersede the options listed on page.
I hate to tie things. I mean, does multimodal do it?
Point of information. I think the multimodal with the proviso that the clerk mentioned about the commitment to pedestrian relocation, that makes that clear that that's the intent of those improvements on the roadway. And I'd offer one more clarification thing, just for the budget purposes. If this amendment were approved, then I'd also suggest that it then strike the options 1 through 4 that are listed on page 18 of the budget, so it's clear that those options are taken out as part of this amendment, and whatever design comes as a result of the continued work on this would be the option that then moves forward.
Is that?
Just so there's no misunderstanding about what this amendment is funding, I guess. Because there could be confusion that, if this amendment's approved, the 1.3 million is funding option 1 through 4, and you're saying through your amendment that it's not funding any particular option at this point, it's funding continued work on a multimodal improvements with a commitment to remove pedestrians from Winnequa Road.
I'm comfortable with that.
Yep.
Can I ask a clarification there? I thought, Kathy, that you had suggested that, in fact, that the amount be increased to 1.5. Did I not hear that?
I don't care whether it's 1.463 or 1.5, because this is my view of it.
Right, whatever it takes.
We have, if it takes a little more to do it right, then we can always, as you said, amend. I mean, and I know you all will go crazy if I say, and I'm not suggesting that we increase the budget, but what I will say to you, and I didn't get a chance to say this before, the triangle area of the triangle area will generate $1.3 million in revenue next year. The borrowing that we have to cover to pay off on the borrowing for TIF is $700,000. If we should do something that would bump it up another $50,000, I will tell you that I will be back and ask to take it out of TIF. I would rather spend the money and do it right than spend $1.4 million and miss something. So that's where I am with it.
So the amount we took was, Kathy said, to take the largest amount, which was the amount for option 4. So
Great,
that's the
thank you.
number.
And so we're not attaching any option to it, we're simply saying we're setting aside this pot of money to make sure that we do Winnequa Road remodel right. Including a pedestrian
That's right.
option.
But if we're doing it in this next fiscal year, which is what this budget is about, we need to get cracking on the planning soon, because they would like to go out to bid in January. So.
I understand.
Okay.
And if we use TIF, we can always borrow $100,000 TIF money and put it, I mean, there are ways to do it, are there not, Mark? Yeah, there are ways.
Yeah.
So I'm not,
I think we're more concerned with the timing.
I understand.
Alderwood, did you have a?
Yeah, well, first I wanted to just correct a couple things that were said earlier. The community survey, in fact, did show a lot of support for sidewalks. In fact, that was one of the highest, if not the highest, gap. In other words, a rating for how important it was compared to a rating of how we were doing. And basically, it was pretty high for wanting it, and we weren't doing it very well. So,
Doug, could we just step back a minute too and say, the community survey is actually the survey that was done as part of the strategic plan, is that right?
right, yep.
Which was like in 2014 or something like that? Is that right?
Yeah,
Or 2013?
Bob was
I know we did
there,
it shortly
so.
after I came on the council,
Point of order,
so.
are we on topic? Just
Yeah, we're
asking.
talking about sidewalks in SouthWinnico, I thought.
Right.
Alderwood?
Well, it relates to, the ped bike plan and all that stuff that was said. And I just want to, I'll either do it now or when we debate on the entire budget. But basically, that was really the survey we used, was that community survey. I don't know what this survey is. I've heard this from other previously about goodies to fill out surveys given to bikers. I have no idea what that is. We didn't, maybe.
I think Kathy has, Doug, I'm sorry, but I think Kathy has a motion on the floor. And
Right.
we
This is
can-
discussion of things
And I don't
related
think
to.
anyone
the motion.
seconded it.
We didn't even
I
second
don't
it.
think, there's not a second.
We didn't even
Is there,
second
is there a
I thought
second
you
for?
seconded.
I will second it.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, Doug, you want to continue?
Yeah, so that's, I just needed to get that out there. For me, I guess I'm not really sure what we expect we're gonna get by delaying this and telling Josh to do some more design work. We've heard of, I think option 3 is by far the best option. I think there's a lot of problems with option 4 that a number of people sort of went through, where the leaves and brush are gonna be stored at certain residences. The bikes may not use the path and so forth. So, as Chad said, if option 3 gives us a normal, predictable street that takes care of all the users in their own space. So to me, I would just as soon move forward with option 3. My concern is with doing this, and I'm glad, clearly we're putting the money in there for an option that's gonna get the pedestrians out of the street. That's been my main goal all along. So I just want to make sure that, we need to get Josh then working, although I'm not sure exactly what he's going to be working on, or have it taken back to the Public Works Committee with the current options we have, but we need to do it soon. That's my concern about sort of, we're kind of kicking the can down the road. So if you want Public Works to have more time to sort of look at what we've already got, that's great. I think Public Works Committee needs then to look at what we have, or if there's something new, and get it back to the council quickly, So.
Mayor?
I guess Alder Moore and then Alder Thomas.
So I definitely do not want to kick a can down the road, but as I said at the beginning, when we started earlier this evening, I definitely want to get this right. And if it means we take a little more time to get it right, and we use the process that should be used to make sure that we get it right, which is to say to go through the Public Works Committee, I think that that's a valuable use of time, even if it means that we don't get, I don't think the priority should be, we have to have the RFP out in January. I think the priority should be, we have to have the best plan, the right plan. And I don't think that, I think that we're all committed to, obviously, by virtue of this amendment and the earlier discussion, I think we're all committed to doing the right thing by this road, but I still think that there are design issues and questions that still need to be answered. And, you know, I genuinely appreciate the community's, engagement, and regardless of where people stand on this, and I really appreciate all of my colleagues on this issue as well. But the last time we did this, it's safe to say that this road was poorly designed, and it was so poorly designed, I just want to remind people, the road was so poorly designed that the engineers refused to sign off on it. And effectively, in order to get through the road, we dismissed their professional expertise and recommendation. And I don't want to be in a position again that because of community input or community wishes or community or our opinions, as far as I know, none of us are engineers, and we don't play one on Monona Media, community media TV, never mind regular TV. And so I want to make sure that we're really listening to Josh and listening to our engineers and really being really careful before we go ahead. As I said, I want to get it right. And if that means we have to spend a little extra money, so be it. Because I think it's worth it. And there's really, in my mind, you know, there's that means addressing three issues, obviously: road maintenance, speeding, and safety on what is a high traffic multimodal route. And I just, you know, I want to speak just for a minute about trees and the other issues, which is to say, you know, it doesn't mean that there aren't other issues, including tree removal or leaf and snow removal or the walls or mailbox placement or where you're going to put your trash, to name a few. Doesn't mean that they don't matter. But, you know, really the three things are road maintenance, speeding, and safety on a high-traffic multimodal road. And, you know, some of the members of this community may not know that I'm a bit of a nature nut, and I'm actually a professional conservationist. That's my day job. That's what I spend 60 hours a week doing when I'm not working for the city these days. I work in conservation. So I understand the value of trees, both aesthetically and as it relates to climate change. I've been joined by fellow council members in voting for increases in our budget for more trees planted and replacement every year. In fact, there's been several questions about that. We do have a net loss policy in the city around trees to make sure that we replace what comes down. I've donated to the tree replacement fund. As chair of the Plan Commission, we've also been maximizing the landscaping that we have in any new developments. And as chair of the Sustainability Committee, I've advocated for a new tree ordinance to deter the practice of private landowners taking down healthy trees in their yards because they want a bigger house or more sun or they don't like raking. So as an aside, if you're one of those community members who have expressed particular concern about tree loss on Winnequa, I would encourage you to reach out and express your support for a new ordinance, because that's another way that we could stop tree loss, by having people take out trees out of their yards just because they don't like the acorns or they don't want to rake or whatever. So I get the trees, I get all those other issues, but we have a larger responsibility for safety. And the appropriate reconstruction of this stretch will result in more walking and biking, which will mean the loss of trees will at least be partially offset by reductions in carbon spewing from vehicles. So, you know, I'm supporting this amendment, because I believe that options 3 or 4 are currently the only options that we should be considering. Which, and I'm in support of this capital budget. But I also think we should be slowing down, as we talked about earlier, and several other people have talked about, to be sure that we explore all the options and we improve number 4 if it's still the best option. I'd like a more thorough response. You know, not only the suggestion I made earlier from Josh around the possibility of switching the path over to the east side. And I'd also like a more thorough response from our engineers around the suggestion of Winnequa becoming a one-way. I understand it was taken off the table, but it wasn't taken off the table by the Public Works Committee or by the council or by Strand. And I'm sure it would probably be opposed by the majority of our community. I'm not even sure I like it. In fact, I know I don't like it, the idea of a one-way road. But unlike the bike boulevard, which was studied, it's never fully been explored. And I think we have a responsibility to look at all the options. So I'd like to ask Josh, if it's possible, you know, how long, if you were to further study option number 4 and put a little bit more mind share into 3, since that one's the furthest one along, and do an honest assessment of the one-way, how long do you think that it would take you to do that?
Would we be bringing that back to this? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Would we be bringing that back to this committee, or are you mean Public Works?
I think it should go back to Public Works.
Got to
That's
go
our
to
process.
Public Works by ordinance.
When is the next Public Works meeting, Dan? Just out of curiosity. You're on mute.
Be the first week in December.
Yeah.
First Wednesday in December.
So I was going to say a month. I think in a month we could come back with, I think, you know, like you said, Nancy, more answers on these, on 4, 3, and a one-way, and bring that to Public Works, and then have that larger discussion there with them.
Does that work for Jennifer? Would that work for you? As chair of the Public Works Committee?
We have the meeting scheduled. I think that would be fine.
Yeah, Dan?
Can I ask what the dollar figure is that we are discussing for this amendment? I only ask because whatever the dollar figure is, I'd like to add $25,000 to that, because we started out 2021 with $67,000 dedicated to final engineering. We spent about $25,000 so far this year, and we haven't even started final engineering. So if we're going back to the drawing board, I would like replenish those funds so we can do this right. So whatever the dollar figure is plus 25 grand, I think we should be okay then.
Kathy, do you want to change your amount?
I'll make it to 1.5. It's at 1.463 right now, right?
It's at 1.379 right now. That's the latest price we have for option 4.
So how much whatever Dan thinks we need to make us whole.
I think we should go 1.5. If you're not going to bid it out until at least January, February,
We may have to, we'll be paying more anyway.
A lot higher. I mean, Josh could probably agree that prices, the longer you wait, the higher prices are going to be. And we probably will not borrow until we get this, so we'll probably put all the other capital projects on hold until we can do this borrowing. We usually borrow in March. We have to have all the information by February, so if it takes longer, you can probably not borrow until probably May, so we'd hold all the other projects just because, you know, cash flow issues we could run into, so especially larger projects.
I would remind people how much it's going to cost us to take the bump outs out, and tell you that making mistakes are also expensive. And it is better to do it right.
Wait, I don't understand why everything else would have to be put on hold, because we're just effectively saying, give us another month or two to figure this out.
If we're not going to borrow until, you know, May, we have the large capital projects, so we've got to have that cash flow in there. So, you know, we pay a lot of debt off, paying some other stuff in TIFs, so, you know, we like to have that cash on hand to pay the bills. So
I mean, you can do the smaller projects, you know, 2,000, 5,000 there, we're talking about 100,000s and 100,000s, just drawing down the balances quicker. And if you're not gonna, you wanna borrow too, until you know what the project's gonna be.
Alder Kuhn?
Just a quick question for Mark, but if we know already that we're going to need at least 1.3, can we not borrow 1.3?
We can, but then if it comes in at 1.5, you have 200,000 you're gonna finance, we take out fund balances.
But I thought we were borrowing from our tip anyways, from.
Well, you're gonna borrow from the tip, but you gotta borrow that money, if you don't have that set aside in funds, you don't have that fund balance.
It'll be paid back by TIF.
You pay it back, so you gotta borrow that money.
Go ahead.
Just kind of to follow up on that, you're talking about, we're going to do one borrowing for all the GO projects, right?
That's what we usually do.
Yeah.
We usually do it in March, so we have our cash on hand. We pay, we collect all the money from the school districts and stuff, we pay that on February, so once after February, our cash flows in.
And we won't know the amount to put in for this project until we get the bid opening.
Well, I wouldn't wait until.
But that's right.
To get the bid opening, to borrow the money, just in case that goes over. We can do, like I said, we can do the smaller projects, smaller, the larger project, I guess there's probably not a lot of these large projects, so. Look like there's not a big lot, we should take that back, there's not a lot of big projects other than this project, so we probably could get
There's the roof of the public safety, or the public works
that's
garage.
like, 50,000. Once you get into 200.
Oh, that's true, that's just planning.
I understand that we sometimes, I mean, I understand that we usually do it once, but I don't know. It just seems to me this whole project is unusual. Let's just put it that way. It's a challenge. It's unusual. We're not suggesting that we're going to kick it way down the road. We're not suggesting that we're opening it all back up again. And Dan, please know, in making this suggestion, I'm not saying that if we're gonna, just like start from scratch all over again. I'm not saying that at all. We don't need to be dealing with 1, 2 anymore, and we know it's basically between a multimodal path and a sidewalk, and we need some more, and one way, and we need some more answers. So hopefully, but I'm all supportive, as Kathy has said too, of whatever Dan thinks we need to make us whole. I'm happy to do that. But anyway, I'd like to think that there's a way for us to think out of the box financially, that we don't hold up everything else because of this one project being delayed by a couple of months. That just doesn't make any sense to me.
Borrowings too.
2 separate borrowings.
Yeah.
It just costs you more money to opinions and things like that.
Well, maybe they'll have a solution by December, and I don't know how long it takes then to make plans to go out to.
I'm just trying to,
yeah.
from my perspective as the
Yep.
finance, that's all.
And that's what we want you to do. Alder Goforth.
I just wanted to ask Alder Thomas, when you made this amendment, did you feel that a couple months of planning would be adequate to come up with the ideal solution? Or, because that was kind of why I put my amendment in of removing the bump outs, because I didn't think we would get to this year, and I thought that would be something for us to do, just to start something, and not look like we're not doing anything. And the bump outs are probably the one thing we all agree that don't work and that they cause confusion. But do you feel it a couple months?
Okay. I'm not a magician. I just know we're not there now. I don't know whether 2 months are there. But I also think taking the bump outs out, which would be nice, is very expensive to do and involves the trees and does stuff and interferes with stuff, and we have to deal with curbs. And so I think that it's not necessary to, I mean, we could always decide to do that at a later date. I'm not prepared to do that now.
To take out the bump outs?
Yeah, I'm not prepared to make any decisions now because that's expensive. It's not necessary right now. If I were going to do anything, I would cut down the grass in front of the walls and asphalt it so people could walk on that and get out of the street. That's what I do. But, so your answer is, I can't tell you how long it will take. It might take 3 months. I don't know. what it will take to get it right. It depends upon how much effort we put into it and what goes on. But I'm not prepared to just go to the bump out option now.
Okay. My concern is, the more we delay, the more things cost. So it seems like that's why I proposed doing the bump outs, just to get something done, and maybe shorten the construction for the following year.
Josh, did you have something to say about that?
And just, so if we remove the bump outs and pave it like Dan's budget had originally, that would be $900,000, and we can't install a sidewalk or multi-use path without reconstructing that again in the future.
Yeah, mine was just taking out the bump outs, not redoing the asphalt. So taking out the bump outs, adding a little signage for some speed mitigation efforts, showing that it's a shared roadway. So a really small step, just to kind of get some construction costs behind us versus kicking the can down the road. And then get a little piece of that construction, going, so it doesn't look like we're not doing anything. Because we know we're all dedicated here to having safer pedestrian and bicycling amenities. And so I just felt like it was something. I know I couldn't get a second on it, but I'm just wondering if we can't get this approved, a plan in time for the borrowing, if Alder Thomas would be open to one little piece of it.
Well, it takes 4 votes, and I think that we have to see how we progress before we make that, even think about that in my mind.
It seems like it's a safe bet that everybody wants those gone, but okay, I'll respect your wishes.
Alderwood?
Yeah, just briefly, I wanted to sort of emphasize what Nancy had said when I think Dan said we're going back to the drawing board, and we're not. That's not what we're saying. My understanding is really we're saying to take a deeper look at 3 and 4, and also apparently the one-way option. So I'm okay with the delay, because I think we need to have a majority or all of us feel comfortable with the project before we vote on it. So, yeah.
Why don't we see what Josh comes up with by the Public Works meeting, and then we'll have a better idea where we are. Alder Thomas?
Yeah, I also want to say, and I said it before, and this is the elephant in the room, the biggest problem we have, one of the bigger problems, is the north end, and it's the walls. And we have not seriously looked at whether that makes it better and more feasible for the plans and for everything. And I think that we've taken that option off the table, and I don't think we should. I mean, so when I talk about doing things, I think we need to look at, does this give us a better chance for better options and better solutions in the long haul?
Anyone else?
I don't want to give the impression that I'm kicking this down the road or that I'm unsure. I still like option 4 the best. I think that it fits what we need. It makes the most people happy within the footprint that we have. I know it's not the best option. I know that there are concerns about the option. I have concerns about the option, and I guess I would like to talk to Josh about those concerns. And so my thought is that not sending Josh back to say, start over, because I think he would probably cry with all of the changes that we've suggested. But I think that a lot of us need to feel more comfortable with any of the plans. Public Works got plan number 4 2 weeks prior to the meeting. It just was not enough time for there to be, a lot of ruminating on the plan. I still like option 4. I think that that's great. Public Works voted to approve option 4, but I know that there are 2 people in this room who said tonight they wouldn't have voted for option 4. And so I think that this should go back to Public Works. I think there should be more time to discuss options 3 and 4. There could be a hybrid of 3 and 4 that would become option 5. I don't know. I just know that we need to get more comfortable. We wouldn't be able to vote to agree on anything tonight. I'm certain of that.
Yeah.
Alder Thomas?
I think there are, Public Works never discussed option 3. I think there are some problems with it, and I invite anybody at dusk to walk down with me and walk behind the trees at Byers' house, Swagan's. It is it gets dark and it gets scary. And the concern of some people is that people wouldn't want to walk on the sidewalk back there. Now, is there a solution or an option for that? I don't know, but I think that both options have problems.
Right.
And that we need to look at fixing both, what we can do to alleviate those things.
Recognizing, of course, that we're first of all, that we're never going to be at 100% when we're here approving a budget. We never are, right? So we know that there's details that need to be added. And also recognizing, as we've said all along, that we're never going to get perfect.
Right.
We're just never going to, unfortunately, this stretch of the road, we're never going to get perfect. But we just want to feel more comfortable.
Mark, I'm going to let Mark say something and then I'll go.
Just to go back, if you're going to do it, I wouldn't really do a budget amendment to either. Only budget amendment to add would be 25,000. Because if you're going to come back later on, you're going to do it before the borrowing. That's when I think we do the budget amendments and figure out what's TIF and not TIF at that time. So I'd leave with the dollar amount in there and change the wording with that, maybe 25 if you need.
So are you saying we should add the 25 to the 1.379?
If Dan thinks they're going to be an additional 25. Otherwise, I'll just leave it as it is and just adjust it.
Just leave it at 1.379?
Just do when we do the borrowing, we'll just adjust it all in, so we got that.
And Dan, you will know though that you're being repaid that 25,000, or there's additional 25,000 for planning, correct, Mark? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yes.
It'll just come out of what we've
Instead of
approved
just
and we
trying to
may
guess
end up
what the
borrowing
number is
more.
right now, I would just wait until we come back and have an amendment to do the borrowing at that amount.
Is that okay with people? All to go for it?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I wanted to thank Alderwood for reaching out to the Greater MPO, that's the Greater Madison Planning Organization. They gave some great feedback. You know, we were really excited about option 4. We were looking at that, and they had some incredible data that shows, you know, all those conflict points with those driveways really could become an issue for us. And, you know, I really wish we had reached out to the Greater MPO months, like when we started this process, because then maybe option 4 we wouldn't have spent all that time on that. So I hope we'll continue to talk with the Greater MPO. I did ask them about that MPO funding piece. It was mentioned that we might lose some MPO funding. They said that it's Surface Transportation Block Grant Program, and it's only potential funding. So it's not that we're going to get any funding, it's just a potential funding pool. And so know that that might not be impacted or impact our budget. But let's keep talking with MPO because they have some great resources available.
And Alderwood is what, the vice chair of MPO?
Right.
Yep. Right, I mean, he is.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of input with MPO, so. Okay, anybody else? Alder Moore.
I just wanted to say a couple of things in response to a few comments tonight. Several people wondered when the last time was we had this many people that were engaged. If my memory serves me correctly, it might be when we discussed making the private use of marijuana legal in Monona. Second, Josh did address the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, the whole idea of lowering the speed limit at the public information meeting and public works meeting. And as somebody who lives on the corner, that's a 15-mile-an-hour speed limit, slowing down, and if just about any school will tell you, even with flashing lights, it doesn't necessarily work. And I believe that's what Josh said at the time, as from his engineering standpoint. We also did discuss bike boulevards, and that was also addressed by Josh, explaining that the number of cars that use Winnequa currently does not equate to what would be considered a good site for a bike boulevard, but that further up Winnequa Road, that could be considered at a later date. And finally, I just, again, I want to reiterate that I don't think it's a data issue here. I think it's a process issue, and I think it's making sure that we, turn over every leaf to make sure we get it right. As Josh also said at the public information meeting, there's no amount of data, that, or additional data I think that's really going to provide, the information that we need, and that's what Josh said. He said he didn't again, podium at that meeting, he said he didn't think that there was any data that would be necessarily change any of his recommendations in terms of the designs that he's doing. So I just want to reassure the committee that, or the community, that we are doing what we always do, which is we're being deliberative and making sure that we get it right.
Alder, go for it.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to point out two other things. You know, Madison has been undergoing their Complete Green Streets study right now, and that was another great document that was distributed to all of the council members, I believe from Sam Borat. And they developed a hierarchy through surveys and research, and it prioritized the different needs on the street. And number 1 was pedestrians. Number 2 was those with disabilities. Number 3 was trees. And after that was bikes and then cars and, you know, anything else. So I did want to point that out because I think Alder Moore said that trees kind of came at the bottom. And then there is, on the city's website, the city's sidewalk system was priority 29 of 31 on the 2013 Monona Strategic Plan Survey. It's right there on the website, and it is at the bottom. So just as a point of clarification, that's the 2013 Monona Strategic Plan Survey, and that can be found on our website.
Anyone else? So, Joan, do you want to reread that amendment?
What?
Yeah.
It's only 25,000, right? You're just adding 25.
I'm adding 25,000.
Danny?
Oh,
just
well,
that much, we
well,
don't even have to do that.
no, Mark is saying no, don't do that.
Oh, we don't? Oh.
We don't need
have the
to.
money.
Just do it all at one time when we do.
Okay, I'm sorry, so it's back to the original dollar amount.
1.37.
Got it, okay.
So you want to just reread it?
Oh, certainly. They would like to continue to work on Winnequa Road multimodal options. Funded
Improvements you can put, multimodal improvements.
improvements.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, improvements. And Winnequa Road funded by $1,379,750 to include a commitment to the relocation of pedestrians off the roadway.
And it's understood that's this year that we're talking about, at this point? I assume.
Should that be
I don't know
should
if
that
we have
be
to say
added?
that, or?
No.
Okay.
No, it's in the
Okay.
budget.
Okay, it's in the budget, so that's it. Any other comments, questions about the amendment? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of Amendment 7, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
I'm sorry, Molly.
Molly is nay? Okay. All right. So that takes us back to the vote on the overall budget
As amended.
as amended. We do have do we need another motion then for it as amended?
Let me find that. The motion was by Alder Wood, seconded by Alder Groupie to approve it, and then we reviewed the amendments. So this would be then
So we can just vote on the original motion?
as amended, yes.
Okay. All right, we're back to the original motion then. Are there any more questions, comments,
This will need a roll call.
whatever? Exactly. This is for the entire capital budget. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Wood,
Aye.
Alder Kuru,
Aye.
Alder Thomas,
Aye.
Alder Goforth,
Aye.
Alder Groupie,
Nay.
Alder Moore,
Amen. Yeah, A.
A.
Motion passes. The capital budget for 2022 is approved. And I would just like to say that I am really happy to see this council make a firm commitment to doing something about getting pedestrians off the road on South Winnequa. So thank you. Okay, we will move on to new business. First item is starred for immediate approval. Item 2A, consideration of resolution 21-11-2517 to adopt ward plan, combine municipal wards for voting purposes, and designate polling places. This is put forth by the city clerk. Is there a motion to take this out of order?
So moved. Correct, I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Is there a motion to approve?
Move approval.
Second.
Joan, would you like to give a
Okay.
little explanation of this?
Very briefly, every 10 years after the census, wards, for voting wards, need to be sort of drawn if they need to be. And using the census block numbers, we need to make sure that each ward is a population of under 1,000. It'd be like 300 to 1,000 residents in each of these wards. So that's what I did. I went to the state level ward map system, and luckily the city of Monona was not split at all in any supervisory districts. I did talk, did provide comment on the mapping on the city's behalf in that we needed to stay contiguous. And so we did. So what you see in front of you is all of those census block numbers, and then the new but the same pretty much ward map. So it was a kind of a complex process, but it does need to be approved even though everything was pushed back because of COVID. It does need to be sent to the Dane County Clerk's Office by the 15th of November, which is why I asked for one reading. And also, there really isn't any kind of debate about this because the map is the map. It's kind of, static. So that's what happened. I'm really very happy with how it turned out in the end. Took a lot of sort of blood, sweat, and tears somewhat to get through the process. Seemed a lot more complicated than it did 10 years ago, but that was 10 years ago. What did I know? I was new. So that's what we have in front of you, and if you have any questions, I'll try to answer. Otherwise,
Questions,
pretty
anyone?
straightforward.
I just
Alder, go forth, and then Alder, Group B.
Sorry, you go.
I was just curious on the map, it says that the total, I think that the total population would be 8624, but I thought that the new census data said our population was 8161.
I know.
I was curious which one?
I have asked that question
Yeah.
because 10 years ago that those two numbers matched.
Okay.
I have not gotten a response
Interesting.
back yet. I don't know why it's different, but that was the final figures. It might have been, and the estimate was done, I have a feeling it was a timing issue. The estimate was done before the census was done, and so the census was the more accurate numbering.
Okay. Yeah,
Is
because it's like
what-
500.
Yes,
So it's pretty
and that's
significant.
my guess. I really don't know, but I have not gotten a response.
Okay, thank you.
Because I was questioning the same thing.
Alder, Group B.
I just know that you've put a lot of work and thought into this process and participated pretty heavily, and I just wanted to see how you were feeling about how everything has resolved.
I'm feeling good. There were some slight mapping issues that I've talked about with the state as well, in that but they're all in water, so it didn't affect any numbers of population. It didn't affect any residents. So I'm not sure, but I've looked around the city and the mapping that we have. There are variations, kind of. So this is as accurate as we could possibly get it. And so I'm feeling pretty confident that we're set. And of course, the census block numbers are, again, not generated by me. They're generated by federal, and it's for real. So I think we're in good shape.
Great, thanks, Joan.
Alder Moore.
Yeah, I just want to say I'm glad you're feeling good, but I know I'm shaking, thinking, oh my God, how are we going to get through this the next time? Joan's not going to be here. So anyway, thank you for all of that work, because I'm sure it is a hassle getting through it all.
I will say that three things. One is I'm a big note taker and a big archiver. So I have a folder of redistricting so that the next clerk can follow, which I followed what I did 10 years ago to figure out how in the heck to do this, because it's once every 10 years. I'm not going to remember.
Right.
So I'm hoping to leave enough information for the next clerk not to have to try to recreate the wheel. Also had excellent help by Brad Bruin, the GIS specialist, who helped with the map and sat with me because I was like, this doesn't look right, blah. And he helped me make sure we were within the boundaries we needed to be in. And then also, City Attorney Bill Cole did review the wording and made sure I had the right statute notations. So I didn't do it by myself, but I appreciate that. But yeah, I tried to make as much clear notes as I could for the next person.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Now we'll move on to the next budget. Consideration of Resolution 21-11-2518, adopting the 2022 operating budget and establishing a tax levy. And we have two amendments that have been put forth, and I guess we'll go through those, and then if anyone has any other comments or questions, feel free to ask. The first amendment, 2201, to amend the senior contracted services line to $51,780, an increase of $758. This is to, we talked when Diane met with us, we talked about trying to increase the, it's the RSVP fund, right? Or what is it?
Contract. Newbridge.
Newbridge. Oh, it's Newbridge, I'm sorry. And Molly and Alder Wood and Alder Groupie worked together to come up with a number to increase it. So it was determined by adding 2.5% to the 2021 amount, which is the same amount as employee wage increases. Since senior contracted services costs are essentially personnel costs, it seems reasonable to apply the 2.5% increase rather than the 1% limit for non-personnel costs. Diane, do you have anything to say?
The only other follow-up was that we did hear from Jim when we were doing some comparisons. One of the reasons that this is brought up is that the case managers are, there's turnover. So they're moving on to other positions in our area that pay them more. In 2022, they were proposing paying between $19 and $25 per hour. And the jobs that they're seeking and moving to are 22 to 27 per hour. So I think any little bit helps, and we're going to get a little closer to bridging that gap, and hopefully we'll just see staff retention in future years.
Okay, thank you. Doug or Molly, did you have anything to?
I'm just great. You know, I can't remember where this conversation was occurring, but Diana's somebody who I think works harder than most people I know in my life, and she doesn't always ask for what she needs because she understands that we have to divide budgetary dollars and considerations among the entire city staff and city programs. So I just think this is extremely important. I'm grateful for Alder Wood's co-sponsorship of the amendment, the fact that we both sort of separately came to the conclusion that it had to happen, and I'm sure others felt that way after our last budget read as well. But I definitely think this is something that we need to keep our ears and eyes on moving forward. Especially given that, you know, we're seeing this pattern of difficulty retaining those contracted services due to other better opportunities. And Monona's senior programming and outreach and, you know, volunteer services are such a special part of our community, and I think we really need to be centering them more frequently in our conversations about budgetary considerations. So thanks, Diane, and thank you, Alder Wood.
Anyone at Alder Kuru?
I still have concerns about how we arrived at the budget numbers for Newbridge. You know, when we look at Public Works and we've got our brush pickup contract, Barnes tells us what they want us to pay them. And we can either agree to that or we can walk away. I'm just confused as to why essentially we're treating these folks like our employees, but yet they're a contracted service. I would expect the contractor to tell us what the work costs. So if he wants to pay his employees $27,000 an hour, and we want those employees, we should pay what the contract costs. I I know that Diane tries to fit it in her budget, but no other place within the city do we handle contracts this way. I'm really confused.
I mean, Diane, can you address that? I have no idea of how you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not as simple as that. With Newbridge, the case managers not only serve Monona, but they also serve East Madison or Madison, and they get funding from Dane County. So their director, they have to go to all these different areas to do the same budget process. So if Madison is doing a, X% increase, Dane County might do this, and it's just a moving target, because everybody's doing something different every year. Because it's not just as simple as we pay for this person and their benefits and, a roof over their head and the phone bill, you know what I mean? And it's always been a really efficient way for Monona to have case management, because we don't have to, we are paying for benefits and an office and space, but just through the contract. But it's been really efficient for us when you think about the numbers, and we're paying for employees. So that's why they can't just say, this is what this costs. They also don't know the number of people they're going to need each, number of Monona seniors they're going to serve. So that changes as well.
Thomas.
The other thing is, if you, and I'd say this, I worked in the county exec's office, and we had elderly services, and I chair the Friends. And one of the things that people do when they do senior services is they are accustomed to bailing one another out. And if Monona, and Diane, feel free to jump in and tell me I don't know what I'm talking about as I say this, but if you're short on the money you get from Monona and you need it, you go to Dane County and you say, we need some more money. They are always helping each other out. When we do programs, people donate food to us so we don't have to provide it. And senior services across the county sometimes bail or help one another out if there are not resources someplace else, or they go and get a donation. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, and that's the difference between a for-profit, business, and we are nonprofit. Newbridge is nonprofit. So whatever you don't get in your funding, you fundraise for.
Elder, go for it.
That's exactly what I was going to say, that you can't compare Barnes as a for-profit business to something like Newbridge that's a nonprofit getting layers of funding from every municipal, from city to federal funding. And they don't know where their funding's coming from, so they have gaps. And so that's really the difference.
We contract with nonprofits all the time. That's what I do in my day job, and they give us a price and we pay it. And so I'm sorry, I don't understand. But thank you for trying to explain it.
Any other questions?
Diane has a comment.
Diane?
And just one more follow-up. And we're doing a budget, so we're predicting the budget, but we have had times when Newbridge has billed us more, and we do pay it. The city will always find a way to do that. So it's not that we ever will stop paying the case managers. We just that's what a budget is, right? We're going to plan to make this budget work and provide the services that we can with this budget.
Anyone else? Okay, I think that, does anyone have any other questions about the operating budget other than outside of these two amendments?
I don't think we went over the second amendment yet.
We haven't gone over the second
I'm
amendment.
sorry, would you?
Safe community program? Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh. It's been a very long weekend. Okay, Amendment 22-02, to add $2,500 for Safe Community Program and to increase port fund revenues by $2,500 to pay for it. This is put forth by Alder Thomas.
So,
Kathy, you want to speak?
I do, and I want the chief to speak more than I do, but, we are all concerned about safety. We talk about it all the time, traffic safety, other kinds of safety. And the police department can only do so much unless we give them some more options. And so they look for options, other options to improve the safety in this community. And to that end, the police chief asked the Safe Communities Director to come and talk to us about what they could do. He'll tell you more about what they do, but they are a nonprofit with, 300 agencies that they work with, and they do things. And we would like to contract with them for services. I will tell you before he tells you more about that, that we are not asking to increase the levy for this. We've talked to Mark and to the chief, and we are like $15,000 below the fines that we've had for, not last year, but before COVID, which were 174, and they're now at 160. So we are suggesting that we add $2,500 to the fines and forfeitures, and the chief will tell us what we will get from Safe Communities.
Thank you, Alder Thomas. As was mentioned, Safe Communities, if you're not familiar with Safe Communities, they've been in our community for about 20 years, and as was referenced, Sheriff Woodkey, the executive director, and I do have a working relationship because I come to you as a former traffic captain for the city of Madison. The city of Madison has had a long-standing relationship with Safe Communities. One of the things that probably the most visible side of them from a traffic standpoint that most people recognize is the pedestrian flag system that you see around our community, particularly Madison. We had an instance this year in which I, as the new police chief, got a complaint from Monona residents about some concerns about crossing Atwood at Olbrich. So that's a shared intersection between the city of Madison and the city of Monona. And it was a very valid concern. In fact, I had spent, as I'm sort of learning the streets here of Monona and learning my new role, I spent some time over the summer looking at that particular intersection on a busy Saturday. And as with the licensed tavern that's there with Tiki, all the activity at Olbrich Park with the beer garden, et cetera, people were making good use of that space. And they're crossing the street, they're going up and down the street. There's a lot of pedestrian traffic there. So it was a very, I think, valid request to do something more to help protect the pedestrians that are walking across that street. One of the things that was recommended was a flagging station there for peds. That system has proven to work, and as was referenced earlier, there's so few engineers in this room. I'm definitely not one of the few engineers that aren't in this room. But I will say that in my experience, and Safe Communities has the data to back it, the programs like that are effective, and that helps your police department. As was referenced, I wish I could have 21 sworn. All they do all the time is traffic enforcement. Unfortunately, we don't have the luxury or the availability to do that. And so I have to be creative, and I have to lean on you as council and our members of our community to really look at traffic safety beyond the police department. Yes, we play an integral role, I understand that, and you'll hear me later reinforce that. But what I really want to do is look at other entities that are out there that can help support our mission in keeping our folks safe. I mentioned just one of the many programs that Safe Community does. They do much more than that. I won't go on and on here, but allow me to elaborate. Their mission is to build partnerships with people and organizations to save lives, prevent injuries, and to make our communities safer. That's their mission statement. They focus on addressing Dane County's top causes of serious injury, drug poisoning prevention, that's a program they have, elderly falls prevention, that's a program they have, traffic safety and pedestrian safety, and suicide prevention. All very, very good programs that I have professional history with, working for the city of Madison prior to my role here, and something that I know Safe Communities will bring more of here as we become a municipal partner. So that's what the $2,500 gets us, as we become a municipal partner and we join municipalities such as Waunakee, Cambridge, Windsor, Marshall, Sherwood Hills, Oregon, City of Madison, and City of Fitchburg in becoming a municipal partner. I think we will get a great return on our investment. One of the things that you have already seen evidence of from Safe Communities is something many of our residents use, and some of you use. Those are the slow down yard signs. Safe Communities has provided 15,000 slow down yard signs. This $2,500, which frankly, when I heard about the dollar amount, I thought it was going to be triple that when asked, helps fund and support these resources. And so I would ask respectfully that the council considers approving at my request and the PFC's approval to fund this very, very important partnership.
Alder Wood.
Thanks, Chief. It sounds like a great program. My only concern here is coupling funding this program with the court penalties, because then it sort of looks like, well, we're going to go write more tickets to pay for this program. I don't know if there's some way to separate. I mean, if you think you know what I'm saying?
Alder Thomas.
If we'd have done this earlier, it wouldn't have looked that way, because we're not funding with this, we're funding an increase in the police budget. I understand how it looks, but the point is that we believe that the fines and forfeitures are underestimated. So you can say that we're funding, I don't know, police officers' salary with the fines and forfeitures and reduce that line. It just gets complicated. Yeah. I mean, it shouldn't look that way, and it's not meant to look that way.
Right.
We were just looking at sources of increasing the police budget.
Fair enough.
Alder Kuru.
I respect your point, Alder Wood. I guess I would be more concerned if we were instituting a new fine or fee to be able to pay this, but if it's already our standard fines and fees and we're just essentially anticipating that we'll collect more based on normal circumstances rather than COVID, I don't have concerns.
Anyone else? Alder Droopy.
So I just want to be clear on the court fine revenue changes. Is that something that is a literal change to the fine or fee schedule for these things that has been approved by? We're just anticipating, as Alder Kuru said, more an increase in this thing that would be penalized.
If you look at the historic pattern of what that line item has been in the past, we are well below. In 2019, I believe it's 2019, it was 174,000. Historically, we have been above $160,000.
Okay.
So I might have, even if we didn't do this, I might have suggested that we increase that amount, because I think it's, and I asked Mark about this because, you know, I'm always I like budgets to reflect actual if possible, and I think actual will be greater than that.
Anyone else? Okay, well, thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Any other questions about the operating budget?
Could I just make a comment?
Sure.
I want to thank my colleagues who were so diligent in defending the transportation budget, because I asked Diane about the impact on the seniors of the of the bus service, and she said that many seniors were very dependent on that, and she thought people moved here just because of the Lyft service, and that it was a very important senior service. So I stand corrected when Molly's looking at me, because I'm looking at Molly who defended. So I should have asked the question. I always ask before I vote, but I should have asked before I asked the question.
Okay, it's a good conversation. All press is good press, right?
Yep.
Now everybody knows.
Thank you. Alder Kuru.
Last committee of the whole meeting, there was some discussion within closed session, and we were promised some documents. Are we going to get those before our next meeting?
Yes, you'll get them before the next meeting. Our hope is to get them to you by the end of this week, if at all possible. Worst case scenario, early next week.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, we will move on. Thank you, Mark. We'll move on to reports of committees, commissions, et cetera. The first item is an update on public safety building feasibility study request for proposal process put forward, or that City Administrator Gatto is going to speak about.
Thank you. So I just wanted to keep the council in the loop in next steps for the public safety building process. As you remember, this past summer when we last discussed it, we talked about the idea of doing an RFP for kind of, I guess I'd call it the pre-work for the project. So this would be an RFP for a technical site feasibility analysis to determine what type of structure could be built on the site to the south of City Hall. So that was piece one, and then that would inform a much larger and broader RFP process that we would do for the full design of the building at a later date, likely mid-2022. So we've gone ahead and done the actual RFP, submitting that out to get responses. We received 8 responses back from various firms from across the Midwest and across the country. And those prices that came back, they were anywhere between $14,500 all the way to $128,000. So we've taken an initial crack at reviewing those proposals. Fire Chief, Police Chief, Detective Losby, the Mayor, myself, just to review them to get a sense of cost estimates, the staff experience on the project teams, experience with similar type projects, and their approach to sustainability. And after reviewing all 8 of those proposals, our initial impression and recommendation would be that we go with FGM Architects out of Milwaukee for a price of $19,800. So knowing that we had a pretty full agenda tonight, I'll bring back a separate capital budget amendment for the council to discuss in greater detail at the next council meeting, and we can answer any questions that you might have on the firm that we'd suggest hiring, but just wanted to keep you in the loop and take any discussion or questions you might have now.
Questions, anyone? No.
What's our contracting threshold?
The contracting threshold is $25,000.
Thanks.
This is an item that does not have a current budget line item in it, so we would need a capital budget for it.
Would it make more sense to take it out of fund balance as opposed to capital, since it's services, that's a one-off thing, we'll never be doing this kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, regardless, I'd have to bring back a budget amendment to you, whether it's out of capital or operating.
I'd just like to say everyone on the committee agreed with this choice. Was by far the best.
Did you say you interviewed how many? Or just
No, we received 8 proposals. We reviewed all 8 proposals based upon our review of their submittals.
You did meet with some people from some of these companies.
Yeah, some of the firms did elect to take an in-person visit of the existing facilities. Not all of them, but a few did come in person to inform their proposal.
And this one was one of those. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And they were really impressed with our facilities, I assume?
They all were, yeah.
It's elevated.
It's wonder why we're getting a new one.
Right, yeah. Anyone have any other questions? Okay. We will move on then to updates and discussion on diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. Anyone has anything they'd like to report? Alder Droopy?
One of the important uses of this time and space, I believe, is to share information. Even if we don't have something that specifically relates to a city project or committee related to DEI, I think there are some important pieces of information that are necessary to give context to the work we do and what we should be striving to do both professionally and personally as a community in Monona. And I know a lot of people have heard about this, but recently the Sentencing Project released a study that says that Wisconsin imprisons Black residents at a higher rate than any other state in our nation. 1 in 36 Black adults is currently incarcerated in our state. And I'm just, to try to parse this out a little bit more, I'm just going to try to read some excerpts from an NPR story about this. But essentially, knowing this information is very important. I think it probably surprises a lot of people to know. Re-entry is particularly difficult in our state. because of incarceration being associated with reduced lifetime earnings, negative life outcomes among children, contributing to high crime rates, neighborhood deterioration, et cetera. We often talk about, police and how to reappropriate police budget items and make our anti-racist climate better by focusing on police operations, but I think sometimes we forget about prison and jail and the impact that these systems can have on our community, members of our community, et cetera. One of the things that I think is important that our community already is doing is investing in more restorative practices versus punitive measures. Under BAC's leadership, we've started referring more people to our community restorative court programming, for example, which I think is extremely important and I think hopefully will someday be the future of how our criminal justice system works overall. But the other thing that Alex G. and members of Expo would encourage us to do is to take this knowledge and do something about it. We can always tout statistics and feel sorry about it, but I don't think that everybody really knows how to pay it forward and put into action what we believe. And so this article just recommends that we pay attention to and express support for example, Assembly Bill 69 / Senate Bill 78, which were last pushed to the Senate in June of 2021, that offers just a variety of expungements for people who have charges that are not considered as egregious, typically for white inmates, for example, than for black. And this would allow lower-level nonviolent offenders, including those with convictions for drug possession, to get their records expunged. Currently, a person is only eligible for expungement if the judge makes that determination at a sentencing hearing, and only if the person is 25 or younger. The bill would eliminate those conditions. So if anyone has questions about that, I can pass along this article or information about the bills, but that's a place that we can start as just regular people in life trying to do something important for, I just think, the very startling and egregious errors that our state has made with imprisonment of black adults. So that's all I have to share. Thanks for your time.
Anyone else? Alder Groupie, or I'm sorry, Alder Goldberg.
Next one over. Today is the first day of Native American Heritage Month, and that runs for the entire month of November. What started at the turn of the century as an effort to gain a day of recognition for the significant contributions of the first Americans made to the establishment and growth of the U.S. has resulted in a whole month being designated for that purpose. Red Fox James, a Blackfoot Indian, rode horseback from state to state seeking approval for a day to honor Indians. On December 14th, 1915, he presented the endorsements of 24 state governments at the White House. There is no record, however, of such a national day being proclaimed. The first American Indian Day in a state was declared on the second Saturday in May 1916 by the governor of New York. In 1990, President George H.W. Bush approved a joint resolution designating November 1990 National American Indian Heritage Month. Similar proclamations under variants of the name, like Native American Heritage Month, have been issued every year since 1994.
Thank you. Anyone else? Alder Moore.
Yeah, I just want to thank City Administrator Gatto for sending on the free bias training information, and I signed up. Looks interesting. And you said that the whole staff is going?
All the department heads, 13 department heads all participated in the training on October 18th. Yep, it's very, very useful.
Anyone else? Alder Thomas.
Just a little thing. If you have not seen the Colin Kaepernick special, it's on Netflix. It's enlightening and educational and informational and something I think we can learn from. Interesting life he's had.
Anyone else? And I guess I have also signed up for that. Were you talking about the Will Pax training?
Mm-hmm.
Right, correct. Yes, I've also signed up for that. And I know staff thought it was really good. So. Anyone else? Okay. Move on to committee reports. Alder Kuru.
No public works this week.
Alder Wood.
No report.
Alder Moore.
On Monday, the Plan Commission will be reviewing the GIP for the new development on Broadway, area that's currently known as Chief's property. So as anticipated, this is kind of on a fast track to make some important deadlines. We did deadlines and others, and so we'll be reviewing that on Monday. That's the primary thing, in addition to several other things on the agenda.
Okay. Alder Group B.
No report.
Only go for it.
For tourism, we had our fall funding cycle, and we only had 2 applications. They were both from MESPA. One was for a guide, and one was for a Monona Lake Loop map, both for $2,500, and we fully funded those. I think the Monona Lake Loop map is maybe a little bit up in the air. Just if SouthWinnico Road is torn up, they might not publish it this summer. But we have funded it, and if they won't use it, then we won't get that money, of course. And then with landmarks, we're actually going to take a look at the historic walls we've heard so much about. Landmarks has never done that before, and so we're going to dig in a little bit and see what we can find out about those. And then I did want to mention, I don't think Alder Moore mentioned it, November 22nd, I've been getting this question a lot, the BMO Harris development on the block, right kind of by the high school, similar, by the top of West Dean, is coming back to Plan Commission. So.
Alder Thomas?
I don't have a report, but I have a request. We have 2 vacancies on Public Works. If we're going to be discussing the future of SouthWinnico Road, we need to work to get some people applying for and becoming members sooner rather than later.
And we've advertised those in a lot of different places and have had absolutely no.
Well, I've talked to a couple.
If anyone knows someone.
I've talked to a couple of people who have some background to maybe applying this.
Okay, great. So hopefully someone will apply. Let's see, I guess we'll see, do either the chiefs have anything to report?
You're turning that down? You go right ahead. My goodness, can I speak for you?
I support everything you do, Chief.
All right.
And ditto.
Thank you, Chief McMullen. Thank you, Council, again. So I will say I don't want to walk out of this room without acknowledging what Alder Groupie said. Very powerful, very shameful of the state to have that level of incarceration of persons of color. Speaking as a person of color, obviously, I approach this in 2 ways, that shameful statistic. Number 1, we as black people need to do better for our community. And number 2, we as cops need to do better for black people. So there's a lot more work to be done, and I appreciate Alder Groupie for bringing that. I think all of us were aware, but those statistics and those numbers are very heavy to hear. And so thank you for bringing that to the forefront. As was also mentioned, we are continuing to work on restorative justice. I have held meetings with the YWCA, Time Bank, Briar Patch, as well as the city attorney, Judge Findley, our former municipal court clerk, regarding expanding that program to 12 to 16-year-olds and what we can do to support those persons as well, because right now, as it stands, the current programming only applies to folks who are 17 to 25. So we're looking to expand that for, frankly, a lot of the young persons who likely need programming like that the most, right? And so we're looking and exploring ways to expand that. There's been support by the judge, by the city attorney, myself, and I've not asked you wonderful people, tough. It's coming to Monona, and I will present it to PSC so that we can get some more public input on that. But there's work to be done, but it's very promising. On a little bit of happier note, that was happy, but happier note, our final 2 open houses, Chief McMullen and I are hosting. One is tomorrow on the 2nd, and the final one is on November 9th. We are making that our senior day tour, and so thank you to Diane, who's hopefully getting tucked in the bed here. She's helping to advertise to our wonderful senior community. Thanks to the great idea from one of your colleagues here at the table, to think about that community who might need more, encouragement. Thank you for helping me out there. More encouragement to come and see the spaces. And so we're dedicating November 9th as Senior Day for our open house. Thank you to our wonderful media team, Will, and I'll say new guy Brennan, who's been amazing in crafting and creating and editing, which is most important for me, our video that we shot, that Chief McMullen and I shot, for those who cannot make it. It should be published on YouTube soon, if not already, so that folks will be able to see a virtual, so to speak, tour of our facilities. We are starting, the chief and I, a peer support and chaplaincy program for the police and fire departments, as supported by our staff. So that's pretty exciting. And I hope to someday introduce the chaplain, the chief and I, to this body. We've stepped up, changing gears. Traffic is something I deal with every day, as I should as chief. I'll say two things. Number one, we've stepped up traffic enforcement in and around school zones. So if you're listening, mostly you parents who are speeding, or guardians, please slow down. We will be out there where we've dedicated a little bit of overtime to help support that. If you are a young person who parks, and I understand your pain because parking is limited, but if you are parking illegally to go to Monona Grove High School, you probably have received a ticket from Police Chief Cheney Austin. I've been out there issuing warnings and tickets, and my staff has followed suit. So please, please, please comply with the postings. We've been out there ramping up enforcement as well. And then lastly, just an update on our new officers who are in the academy. Pretty stressful day for them tomorrow. Please keep them give them good kudos and thoughts. They have their firearms qualifications, and so some of us folks, not me necessarily, who have small hands, that kind of is one of the more challenging days in the academy because of how you have to grip the tool and whatnot. So we've given them a lot of resources and repetitions, and you've spent money on ammunition to try to make sure that they feel comfortable going into that test. So wish them well. I'm sure that they will come out just fine. And that's all I have from the police department. Working hard every day, your staff is. I should mention, make a plug for dispatcher. We anticipate dispatch vacancy in February. We hope to get somebody in the door and trained in January, mid-January, so there'll be some overlap. But there's a shortage of dispatchers in Dane County in general right now. And so if you know somebody who's interested, please send them our way. Send them my way or Lieutenant Duman's way. We'll give them a tour, we'll walk them through it, we'll sit them down, we'll see if they have more questions, because maybe they might not know enough about it, but they're great communicators, they're great multitaskers.
What shift are you talking about?
Well, it's probably going to be like a swing shift, and it might fluctuate from a night shift to an afternoon shift.
And do they need experience, or what type of background do you like them to
We will
have?
train them.
Okay.
You need to be an excellent, hopefully I didn't mess anything up there, Will. I touched something. You need to be an excellent multitasker.
Okay.
Good listening skills, obviously. Good communicator. And you have to put up with cops because you're sharing a workspace with us.
Okay. And bilingual helpful?
I'm sorry?
Is bilingual helpful?
Bilingual would be great. We have one bilingual dispatcher. Welcome more. Would love to have somebody fluent in Mandarin, Hmong, Spanish, por supuesto, of course. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief?
See, he triggered a couple things, didn't he?
All right.
Which is a good thing.
Bring
So,
it, Jerry.
I don't know if I can follow up that enthusiasm, but I'll do my best, so.
I'd expect nothing less.
Yeah, I've never
You know,
noticed
we all do our best. So, just a couple updates from the fire department and mentioning the 2 new police officers. We do have 6 new volunteers coming on board tomorrow night. They'll all be down at the fire station tomorrow night. Since we closed that application process and we've moved these people through, as of tonight, I've gotten 6 more applications on my desk, including 2 people that came by today just to drop off applications that live in the city. So we're going to be working at bringing some more on as well. Big news for the fire department. For the first time in 37 years, we'll have new medical direction going forward as of January 1st. I know I brought it to the budget as well. MEP is very excited to be part of this. They were actually at our training last week. Dr. Cronenfeld was there last week to provide some real-time feedback to our folks as we were working on car accidents and such. Spoil the news a little bit. The Chili Fest went well. We partnered up with MESBA to do the Chili Fest earlier in October and raised almost $1,000 for the association. He's going to drop the check off tomorrow night. And I think that's it. It's a really great, we're having a great time. I will say, you talk about diversity and inclusivity and equity. All of my conferences this year kind of fell into October. So I've had 3 conferences in the last 4 weeks, so my mind's a bit of a whirl. But there are a lot of conference topics addressing that, and we've been attending lots of those classes as a department as well. We're looking to send 5 people early next year to EMS Trendsetters, which is down in Lake Geneva, and that's heavy on the topics that I'm expecting my staff to take. So not just from an officer standpoint, but from a volunteer and full-time standpoint. So we're actually really enjoying it. So I don't know if I followed it well or not, Chief, but that's the best I can do. And I also want to say thank you. You guys put in a lot of time here, and I appreciate it. And I welcome you all to stop by, especially on Tuesday nights. We have Chief Eckloff's chili tomorrow night. So you're welcome to stop by. It's a tradition. It's been 41 years straight now. He's been making it with Larry Reed. So you're welcome to stop by tomorrow evening and have some chili and meet some of our new folks and some of our existing folks. So thank you all.
I just want to say that Diane might not be the only one that is interested in tucking in the bed.
And then I wanted to mention too, Jerry's hosting a Free Bikes for Kids donation station this Saturday from 10 to 2 p.m. for Free Bikes for Kids. Yeah, bring your bikes, all sizes, any style, bring them down.
Last thing I'll mention, I apologize I'm not on camera. I just found out from my pharmacist that's done all the work for us here. We're going to be hosting a couple of pediatric vaccination clinics.
Oh, nice.
Tentatively scheduled for the 13th and 14th.
Oh, fantastic.
The one in Monona will be at Winnequa School. We'll be supporting him with an ambulance the entire day. It'll run the entire day. They're expecting a lot of children.
Oh, yeah.
There's going to be one at Glacier Ridge, I think, in Cottage Grove, and one here at Winnequa. So that'll be a week from Saturday and Sunday during the day.
Awesome. Fantastic.
9 to 6. Great.
Woo.
Thank you.
Final leg.
City Clerk, do you have anything to report?
No report.
And Mr. Gatto, do you have anything?
I do not, no report.
And I do not either. So is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.